2021 meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board. Join me, if you will, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get to the substantive matters this evening, we have two continuance requests. First, I'm going to have to switch glasses. This is dignified. In the matter of Appeal 3085, the applicant Custom Finishers, property located at 550 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned PB planned business. The applicant is requesting relief from section 280-123 B of the code to permit the installation of one wall sign greater than 60 square feet and higher than 15 feet above the existing grade. Is someone here for the applicant on the continuance?
Mr. Riley, this is George Brosman. My law partner, Craig Robert Lewis, was handling this matter, and he knew that I would be here this evening, so he asked me to appear for this. He gave me a copy of the letter that he sent to the board. Apparently, the matter needs to go to the Design Review Board, and there wasn't a meeting of the Design Review Board that they could go to before this meeting. So they're asking for a continuance to allow them to go to the Design Review Board and then return to the Zoning Hearing Board. The chairman is muted.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Does this request require any extensions of time? I believe there was one that did and one that did not.
I see in Mr. Lewis's letter that he did grant an extension.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to find the letters right now. I don't have them in front of me.
The letter
Okay,
says, accept this as applicant's grant of an extension of the timeframes for the board to commence the hearing up and including April 1,
April 1st.
2021.
Okay, great. All right. In accordance with the requested letter, we'll continue this appeal 3085 to the March meeting. And the second continuance request is on appeal 3088, which is the applicant BDN 250 King of Prussia 1 LP, property located 250 King of Prussia Road. Mr. Brosman, you're here for that as well?
Yes, I am. Good evening. I'm representing that applicant, and similar to the prior one, but not exact circumstance. We may be required to go to the Planning Commission. And we learned that after the February Planning Commission meeting had occurred. So we were asking for a continuance to your March meeting to allow us to appear before the March Planning Commission. If that is required by the township, I believe it will be, but I'm waiting for confirmation of that. And this was the one I didn't think an extension was needed. You were still in your time period.
And Kevin, do you concur with that?
No, sorry, there we go. I wasn't off mute. I do believe that they meet the 60-day clock and still make the March meeting.
Okay, great. That being the case, we'll grant this continuance as requested in Mr. Brosman's letter of February 16th. So those two matters will be continued until March. Moving down the agenda, the next appeal is Appeal 3086. The applicant, Jennifer and Matthew Breen, property located at 14 Lowry's Lane and zoned R4 residential. The applicant is requesting relief from section 280-30E of the code to extend a second-story addition 24 inches beyond the existing non-conforming exterior garage wall, which is currently 23 feet from the rear property line. The applicant, I believe I see the applicants there.
Yes, we're here.
Hi, good evening.
good
Norma,
evening.
Norma Garrity, would you please swear the applicants in?
Yes, if both of you would raise your right hand, please, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
And state your names one at a time, please.
Jennifer Breen.
Matt Breen.
Thank you.
And I'm Steve Austin. I'm with the Breens. So I just want to make sure and I got sworn in too.
You guys.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Austin, your capacity is what?
I'm the contractor. I'm the builder.
Okay. Norma, why don't you go ahead and swear Mr. Austin in as well?
Certainly, sir, if you'll raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. State your name and spell your last name, please.
Yeah, it's Steve Austin and it's spelled Ostien.
And Steve, P-H-E-N?
No, Steve, just S-T-E.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for putting up with the preliminaries. Why don't you tell us about the project and why you're in front of us this evening?
Sure. So we are looking to put in a second floor addition on our home. It's currently 3 bedrooms. We are both working from home for the foreseeable future. We have 2 young kids that are going to grow it, that are getting older. So we're trying to add some more space, add a home office, add a bit more bedroom space for one of our kids. And just because given the market in the area, it's prohibitive for us to actually move to a bigger home. So we're trying to work with what we have and build out.
And the extra 2 feet will make a big difference for our son's bedroom size, just based on the size of our current house.
Okay, and we have the application materials you provided, but why don't you walk us through the project if you would, utilizing whichever of the items in the application you choose to use.
Sure. So we aren't actually building out on any of the permeable space. So the way that our house is, there's a flat roof above what was the garage. So we're building above that and then out 2 feet from the that second floor. And that's where we're hoping to get a little bit extra space for a bedroom and then turn the existing bedroom into an office. In addition, we're going to be adding a master bath.
Okay, and if you could just using perhaps either of the drawings that are attached to the application, perhaps the page that's identified as SP1.
Okay.
The plan in the back. Why don't you show us exactly where the location of the area in question is, so the board can get a better idea of.
So if you look at the drawing on the left side, there is the existing garage. And
Excuse me for a second. Norma, that's Mr. Breen speaking. I'm sorry, I should tell everyone.
Oh, sorry.
When exhibits are up, please identify yourself when you're speaking, because
Okay.
our court reporter cannot identify who is speaking and she needs to keep an accurate record. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So this is Matt. So on the left-hand side, we have the existing 1-story garage with the existing patio. So the existing patio will stay in place and we'll basically be building on top of the existing garage up to the second level. So it kind of will square off the house, basically. The way it's set up now, if you look at the side of the house, that's the 1 level flat roof. We're going to build on top of that. And that's where the extra 2 feet would come out. So the 2 feet would be above the actual ground.
No, I think so.
Okay, and one other request, if you're not actively participating in matter, please mute your device so that we only have the applicants and their representatives and professional advisors helping them. Thank you. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Sure. So in essence, it'll just kind of square off the house. Basically, it has that we have a flat roof over the garage now. We would be putting the extra bedroom and bathroom on top of the existing garage. So we're not building out into the yard anymore. The 2-foot overhang would actually be over the existing patio,
And a little bit of the yard as well.
if that makes sense to everybody.
So if you look at it, I think it's the dotted, there's some dotted line. So if you're looking off to the left, where it has 28-1, and then I think there, it says eaves line. So that dotted line out, I believe, is the extra 2 feet to the edge where the last purple line
Mhm.
to the left.
Yeah, if you take a look at that on the left side of the
Okay.
plan, there's language that reads line of proposed upper level expansion above existing garage, and then an
Yeah,
arrow
Yes.
pointing to the dotted line.
Yep.
It's
thank-
that
yeah,
it's that
That's
dotted
it.
line right
Yeah,
there.
Correct.
that probably would be
Yes,
easier
correct.
visually to
Yes,
explain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And tell me about communications that you have had with your neighbors about the project, whether you've talked with your neighbors about the project, what the reaction has been, if you have spoken with them.
Sure, and we actually included in our application package, we proactively went out to the neighbor, a number of neighbors that lived behind us and off to either right or left of us, and let them know about the project, gave them a letter and to explain what we were doing, but we did talk to them in person as well, and then asked them to sign off if they were in favor of it or, you know, had no objection. So we did include those letters from neighbors in our application.
Okay, and we're gonna just identify the entire application package as A1 for purposes of identification. And I think I think you've adequately described that these letters that have been signed by a number of your neighbors have been included in that application package.
Correct.
And I believe we may have gotten one late by
That's
email. Is that
there was one additional letter that I got after the fact that when we submitted all of the forms from the US Postal Service, we included it in that.
okay? We're going to identify that letter as applicant's exhibit A2 for identification. And that's a letter that is from David and Debbie Lander of
Correct.
9 Old Oaks Road. And Old Oaks backs up to your backyard.
Yes,
Is that right? That's the street that would be on the left of this plan that we're looking at right now.
Yes.
correct.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Okay, I don't have any other questions for this these witnesses. Ian, if you could pull the exhibit down, that would be great. Are there any questions from members of the board on this application?
None from me.
No questions. Just had one question. What is the setback now with that addition? I don't think it was marked on the exhibit.
Right, the setback right now is 23 feet. And they're all non-conforming lots along that backyard. At one time when they were built, I'm sure they were fine, but maybe zoning changes over the years. So all of the homes along that street appear to be non-conforming.
So if you measured from the second floor, you would be talking about 21 feet.
21
Correct.
feet.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
And I do want to make a note too, that all of the letters were very positive. They're very, they really want the Breens to stay, and they've had response back. So
I guess it's Brad Delizzi. I want to have a quick question. So you're not going to demo. You're just going to
No.
No
keep
demo.
what's there and add it.
That's
So
exactly right.
okay. And if I mean, clearly, if you began to build and there was a need to demo the bottom, you know, you're going to get approval, I think, for the, or at least you're going to request for the overhang. So if you decided to, you know, demolish the first floor and then kind of build up, you know, again, just be wary that you'd have to come back, because again, we're gonna, if there's an approval, it's per the plans. So
That's not,
But
yeah,
that wouldn't
that's not in the
happen.
plan at all.
We've already finished the
not
first floor,
right.
so I would be really upset if we had to pull it out.
you never know.
No, I
Okay,
know.
great, thank you. Great, I'm good.
Okay. Kevin, I don't see any public comment on this matter.
Let me
But,
check.
if
I
you
didn't
could
see
double
any a few
check for
minutes ago. I do not have any.
Okay, great. So at this point in time, it would usually be the point in the proceedings where the applicant would ask that the exhibits that they've provided be entered into the record. Would you like to request that these exhibits be entered into the record?
Yes, could you please
Okay.
have the exhibits entered into the record?
Okay, without objection. Who would like to make a motion to start discussion on this one?
I'll make the motion. It's Rich Weitzman. I would move that we grant the relief requested based on the plans as submitted.
I would second that.
Thank you, John. Any board discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion to grant the request or the relief requested, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 5-0, Norma. Mr. and Mrs. Breen, good luck with your project. I hope it
Thank
goes
you.
well.
Thank you.
And thanks for stopping by this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
We appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, let's go to Appeal 3084. The applicant, Carbon Health, property located at 200 and 220 West Lancaster Avenue and zoned WBOD Wayne Business Overlay District. The applicant is requesting the following relief. 1, a determination that the proposed use is permitted under section 280-53.7A, or 2, alternatively, and to the extent required, if the proposed use is considered as an office use, variances from sections 280-53.7B and 280-53.10 to allow an office use in a vacant building which has just one floor. 3, a variance from section 280-53.12B2 to not provide additional parking spaces on the property. And 4, any other relief deemed necessary for the proposed occupancy of the vacant building. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
We are, Mr. Riley. This is George Brosman representing the applicant.
Good evening again.
Good evening. I would like to make some opening remarks, and then I will have probably 3 witnesses, if that's okay. Shall I proceed?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Good evening. I represent the applicant, Carbon Health, which is a prospective occupant and tenant of the vacant 1-story building that is at 220 West Lancaster Avenue in Wayne. It was last occupied, I believe, about a year ago as a Lululemon retail store. The building is located on a property that's known as 200 and 220 West Lancaster Avenue. It's a property with 2 buildings and 2 addresses, but it is one parcel. And it contains a relatively large amount of parking. The property is directly across the street from a large 103 space public municipal parking lot. Some refer to that as the AT&T lot. In addition to the building that's the subject of this application, I think it's fair to say there's a large amount of vacancies in and near downtown Wayne presently, and we'll have some testimony about that. The property is located in the Wayne Business Overlay District. This application presents two issues, essentially. First is the use of a one-story building. As the notice that Mr. Riley read alluded to, under the WBOD provisions, office uses are permitted on a second and third floor above a ground floor retail use in the Wayne Business Overlay District. As we indicated in our application, we believe the board could find that the proposed use qualifies under the large umbrella of retail use, as that term is used in the Wayne Business Overlay District. That term includes personal services and similar uses providing sales and services to its customers. If the board agrees that the proposed use falls under the WBOD retail umbrella, no further relief is needed. And we'll go into testimony on this, but basically, these are health and wellness related services. And I can't think of something that wouldn't be more of a personal service than that, but we'll have some information about that. If the use is deemed to be an office use, a variance is requested to allow the one-story building to be occupied by the proposed use. Limiting the use of the one-story building, we believe, creates a hardship, especially in these challenging times for more traditional retail brick and mortar stores with a large amount of vacant space in Wayne and what we have seen with the pandemic. The second issue relates to parking. Unlike many of the properties in the Wayne Business Overlay District, the property has a relatively large amount of parking, and it actually provides all of the code required parking on site. It doesn't have any extras at the moment. But if the use is determined to be a permitted retail use on a ground level, all of the required parking would continue to be provided and no relief is needed. If the proposed use is determined to be an office use, then the Wayne Business Overlay District parking provisions, which require one space for each 250 square feet of office space, would be triggered. Since a retail use in WBOD requires slightly less parking, one space for each 300 square feet, the office use would trigger an additional parking as a technical matter. Given the small size of the vacant building, an office use would require approximately 1.19 more parking spaces than if it was determined to be a retail use. So to the extent required, we've sought a dimensional variance to not provide the additional parking spaces for the proposed use. Being that the parking supply on the property is greater than many in the district, and given the complementary uses on the property, which the property owner will describe, and given the large municipal parking space across the street, we don't believe there'll be any practical parking problems. With that introduction, I would like to call Mr. Kelly as my first witness.
Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, please, I will swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. State your full name, please.
John Kelly.
Thank you.
John, is your entity, the Wayne Town Center LP, the owner of the subject property?
Yes, it is.
We have some exhibits. Is it okay if we share the screen and put those up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, if I could find the unmute button. Yes, certainly.
My paralegal, Jessica Welch, is going to do that. And for the record, Mr. Kelly, we have Exhibit A2A Is this a copy of the deed to the property showing that Wayne Town Center LP is the owner of the property?
Yes, it appears that way.
And are you a principal of Wayne Town Center LP?
Yes, I am.
And has Wayne Town Center LP consented to the filing of this application by Carbon Health?
Yes,
And at Exhibit A2B, is that a letter you provided that we submitted with the application?
yes, it is.
And you can confirm on the record that you do consent to this application being filed?
Yes, I do.
You're obviously familiar with the property?
Correct?
And are you involved with the day-to-day management of the property?
Yes, I am, and my company is.
When did Wayne Town Center LP purchase the property?
March of 2008.
And after it was purchased, did Wayne Town Center make a significant upgrade to the property?
Yes, we had about a 12 to 18 month construction project and substantially renovated the building to bring it up to a current day standard and as it exists.
And you did that to both buildings on the site?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I'd like Jessica to go to Exhibit A3, please. And could you blow that up a little? Thank you. Mr. Kelly, drawing your attention to Exhibit A3, this is an aerial exhibit. Is the subject property highlighted in yellow here?
Yes, sir.
And the building, that's the old Lululemon building, it has the red star on it.
Yes.
And using this exhibit, can you describe the existing conditions on the property?
Well, we have a two-story building that is predominantly and all retail on the first floor. That adjoins the subject property that we're discussing tonight. The second floor is an office use. The uses that are in there are ones that we worked hard to bring in here to be compatible with the community, and I think the direction the community wanted to see Wayne developing into. And we've also worked hard to make sure that they were not only credible and professional operators, but that they had the right investment in their own suites, and that the crowd and the traffic that they would draw would not be overburdening and be appropriate to the building and the other tenants that are in there and within the community.
And approximately how many parking spaces are on the property?
There's approximately, we refer to it as 160. It's 158. There's one spot that that is used for a summertime exit entrance to the terrace for the restaurant, who's allowed to operate in normal times. But we can elect to have that put back into the pool and entered elsewhere, but 158 spots.
Mr. Kelly, in regard to the building in question with the red star on it, can you describe that building?
Yeah, the building originally was built, I'm going to take the project in two sections. It was built as a headquarters going back for Sun Oil Company, and the Pugh family principally occupied it. And the building that Lululemon was in previously and that Carbon Health is looking at was a Sun gas station that has been, similar to the other one, taken back to the bare bricks and blocks and completely renovated, whether it's water lines, sewer lines, roof, HVAC, et cetera, as the other building where it was. Lululemon was very, very successful there. We were disappointed, and we got a lot of feedback from the community. They didn't want to see them leave. Their sales targets were exceeded, but they had changed their business model, and they're going to a different type location and different store size. And they indicated us they were not going to relocate within Wayne. If they did, they'd stay right where they were. They were very happy there, but that was more of a national corporate decision. So that's how that vacancy became available. And it's the first vacancy we've had in that building since we developed the property back in '08. I think that answers that question you asked.
Thank you. And referring to A3A that we have up in here, could you identify the surrounding land uses? Let's start to the right at 130 Lancaster Avenue.
Okay.
What is that property used for?
That property runs from Lancaster Avenue to West Wayne. In the rear, it's owned by Lumberman's, which is a business cooperative, I think, that handles the wholesale lumber trade. Their offices are in the rear. The front building that they own is a mixed tenant building of business uses. On the first and second floor, there are offices that are there.
Jessica, could you switch to A3B, please? And for the record, this is a similar aerial exhibit, just a larger area. The property, again, is highlighted in yellow, the building with a red star. Mr. Kelly, the Lumberman's building to the rear shows up more completely on this exhibit. Is that correct?
Right. It's the building outside the yellow area with the white roof. It looks like it has a blue dot on it from my perspective. Yeah.
To the rear. And then going up to the front of the property on Lancaster Avenue, what's to the west of the property?
The west of the property is an apartment building, and that's owned by a local real estate owner, and I think maintained well. That has office and retail on I think their ground floor, and their first and second, and I believe they have 3 floors, are apartments. And that one goes over to Bloomingdale to the west, and of course to the north to Lancaster Avenue.
And you heard my opening remarks, I assume. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this A3B, I mentioned a 103 space municipal parking lot. Is that shown across the street here on this exhibit?
Yes, that lot was one that the tenants within my complex and ourselves contributed to put a kiosk in there so that it could be used for not only longer term people who work within the WBOD in Wayne, but also for shoppers or people that were here for shorter stays. The parking lot is in good condition over there. It's only 50 feet from our building across the road. And it typically averages not much more than 35–40% occupancy during the day, and at night it's much lighter. So it's a good amenity for Wayne to have. And I think it would be important that that be there for all the business owners and residents to use.
Thank you. Jessica, could we go to some of the photographs starting at A4? Or I misspoke. I said A4, A2. These were photographs in the application. Mr. Kelly, I'd just like you to identify these for the record. We have A2, C1.
Okay. That's the east side looking from Lancaster Avenue down to a plaza that we installed there. The first floor retail is along the right side. You'll see the holly trees and the planters going down. It returns to the left side and goes across the front in front of Charles Schwab and Bluebell Kitchens, and right down from White Dog.
And then C2.
Okay, C2 would be the west side, looking probably from the pavement adjoining the property. Yeah, I can see it a little better now. The one-story building is partially in the picture to the right, and to the left is the 2-story building. Again, first floor is the retail portion along there. The second floor are the office areas.
And C3, please.
Okay, C3 is the former Lululemon building that Carbon Health is looking at. It's approximately 2,300 square feet. It's a one-story building, completely all new glass roof, all new HVAC, sewer lines, et cetera, water lines, sprinkler systems added, and ready to go for a tenant.
Okay. And could we go to A2D, the photos of the adjoining properties?
Mhm.
This is D1. Is this 130 Lancaster Avenue next door?
That's the small 2.5-story building that is all office on the 3 floors that is owned by Lumbermans that I don't know if they take space in there. They have a larger building to the rear, but it's right to our immediate east.
And D2?
That is the apartment building owned locally with 3 stories of apartments, and you can see the awning. There's first floor retail uses. There's, I think, a yoga studio, and I know there's some type of, might be acupuncture or chiropractor or something in there. I'm not sure, but well maintained on my west side.
And next photo, please. D.
Okay. Yeah, that's the rear of our building, not our building, that's behind our building coming off West Wayne. That is the headquarters for Lumbermans that you can drive out to that small 2-story, 2.5-story building that you first showed on Lancaster Avenue.
And this is essentially an office building.
It's all office, 3.5 floors of it. Yeah.
D4, please.
Okay, this is a building on Bloomingdale that would be to the west side of our building, on the west side to the rear. The backyard of this building would be overlooking our rear parking lot and rear entry to our offices.
D5.
Directly across the street, it's a 1-story retail building. The LCB had a liquor store there that moved down closer to the movie theater in Wayne. And there was a former Baskin Robbins, former liquor store. I think the tenants in there, I think maybe 1 or 2 remain, but I think it's principally vacant and being marketed.
Next photo, please. D6.
Okay, that's the building that housed anthropology, and they were there for a good long time, I think 10 to 15 years, and they built a larger building, I think, as we all know, up above the horse show at the at Devon at Waterloo Road and Lancaster Avenue. But I believe they still have a little bit of time left on a lease, and it's basically vacant, but it may be being marketed now, but it will be marketed, I assume.
But it's currently vacant.
Yes, it is.
D7, please.
Okay.
This is the municipal
I'm
parking lot.
going to say
across
this
the
is the
street.
municipal parking lot. Okay. As you can see, not being well utilized, but probably might be a Sunday morning or something, but that's directly across the street from our building.
And D8.
All right, that is between the anthropology building and the other commercial building that you showed me directly across from my building facing Lancaster Avenue. It's a mixed retail use in the front, and I think on the side there's a cryogenics or some type of therapy on the right side on the retail section there, and it parallels the former liquor and Baskin Robbins building. It's vacant.
And that's that last use in the rear, that's on a ground level.
Yes, my knowledge, that building is all 1 floor.
Moving on to another topic, we've gone over the surrounding land uses and the property conditions. Generally, when you're looking for tenants, when you did originally, and now that you have you been selective in the tenants that you choose for the property?
Yes, We have been, we're long-term holders, typically. We're local. I'm a local person. I live within the community. We have other buildings on Lancaster Avenue and off. We look for professional based tenants that are good business owners. They're financially qualified, have successful operations from wherever they're coming from, or if they're going to start. We've been very fortunate up through 19 in maintaining the occupancy. The occupancy, as I mentioned earlier, at Lulu is the first occupancy we really had there. And we have another vacancy, but on the first floor, on the retail on the other side in the main building. And that arose because of the economy and a tenant that actually just went out before their lease was up. We hadn't experienced that type of thing before, but as you can see on Lancaster Avenue, there's a lot of evidence of the effects of the slowdown within the economy due to the pandemic and the retrenching of retail tenants. It is a very concerning thing for all of us as owners, and I believe as residents within the community. Wayne is a very desirable community. It's a very good draw, but the tenants that are coming in, especially national in scope, are very careful at this point in making selections that would involve future commitments. So that's what we're experiencing right now. We feel fortunate to get someone of the caliber of Carbon Health, which is a good innovator in urgent care. They're a nationally based organization, and it's their sole line of business, and they're quite good at it and a sought after tenant in most marketplaces where you have a higher street or retail environment.
And do you believe that Carbon Health would be an appropriate use for this building and compatible with your other tenants?
Yeah, what we found in other locations and here, urgent care is, in the last 10 years, has become a very important category of retail in real estate. Typically, the services that they offer, they're not typical of an in-depth medical practice and office. I believe they can be used on an as-needed basis or with a scheduling component. But they many times going to a doctor might require a day or two appointment. You don't need to do that here. But with the way the pandemic has grown and the effects that it's had and the type of restrictions that people have lived under, they prefer to go to a facility that is at grade, it's on first floor, and there's no ADA issues. And it's really important too, if it can be not co-tenanted with other users. People are we're masking up, we're going in and out, we're being cautious, and there's a sense of increased security with that type of presentation with a professional organization. I believe that they'll be able to execute in a way that will be very appropriate to the needs and the requirements of the residents within the community. We have a lot of good medical choices in the Philadelphia area, and we have a very astute residential base here. I think the compatibility will be good.
Thank you. Are you aware of other commercial spaces that are presently vacant in the Wayne commercial area?
Well, I certainly am. I think we all are. At times, I think I see as many of them vacant as I do occupied. We've not been without some damage from the downturn in retail. We're starting to see a little bit more comfort of the type and quality of tenant prospects coming back into the market and coming and touring space that is vacant. And Wayne still ranks very, very high in a draw in that area. It's very central located within the center of the main line. There's probably 18 or 20 restaurants and the other shops that support it, and other good retailers. I think that my comfort level is good for the long term, and I'm feeling more optimistic about what's happening locally. Some of the tenants that have gone out, it's a function of the pandemic and it's a function of the changing face of retail. We're all pretty aware of Amazon and many other retailers that have online purchases and delivery systems and so forth. So you really have to be quite good at what you do, and then to be a central draw to warrant the bricks and mortar real estate and to bring people here.
And we won't go into it in any detail, but Jessica, at Exhibit A7, could you put that up? Or I'm sorry, I had the number wrong. Our list of vacancies.
Yeah.
Is this just a partial list of vacancies you're aware of in Wayne?
Yes, that's correct. I think everybody will remember a number of these people because they were, in many cases, facilities that were utilized by many of us as we've lived here over the years.
Thank you. Would like to turn to address parking. Based on your experience with the property and the area, do you believe the parking on the property will be adequate for the proposed use?
Yes, I do. We have turned down inquiries in both buildings where we felt parking would be either taxing or something that we couldn't support or handle with the tendency that we have and the spots that we have. If we net out to our total usable square footage here, our ratio is quite high. It's almost 4-to-1, which is kind of an industry goal. We're probably somewhere around 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 per thousand. We did help sponsor the inclusion of the lot across the street. Some of our tenants have contrarian hours, which helps support it. White Dog tends to do most of their business at the night. Their Monday through Friday lunches are not their main draw and their mainstay, especially I'd say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are typically softer for them. We do have additional parking provisions for them so that we don't get overtaxed there. I really have turned down inquiries where I felt that our head count when someone coming in or the tendency they would draw would be excessive or overburdening. And I know that other owners in locations have not done that. And I think at times that can be very short-sighted because we want to retain the good people that we have and people that can serve and be part of the community.
That's all I have for Mr. Kelly at this time.
Yeah, George, I just want to also mention a little bit out of here. I'm thinking about this, and I wanted to add that I believe that we also have very good local medical options for our residents here, and just like many other products that are offered, it's good to have choices that are out there, and I believe that Carbon will do well here, but they won't do it to the peril of any of our existing medical people that are there. And I think that each will stand on their own. And it might be a little harder for Carbon to generate the business and the clientele that they want because they will be new and unknown to us. But I think that will play out, and there's a place for them without overtaxing any system of existing medical options.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there any questions from board members for this witness?
None from me.
I don't know who anybody is.
I'm sorry,
That was
John
John.
Moore. I said I don't have any.
Okay, if we could go back to the full screen with, thank you. Any other questions from board members?
No, nothing from me.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is for Mr. Kelly or someone else, but I would like a better explanation of the actual use of this property. we keep hearing personal services. I don't know that that includes medical office. But I'd like a better understanding of the actual use. Will it be doctors present? Will it be appointments made? What's going on there?
Okay.
Our next witnesses will cover that. They're from Carbon Health.
Okay.
Okay, I think that does it for this witness.
Mr. Chairman, it's Jim Greenfield. I do have some questions on behalf of Dr. Walker that I would like to ask of this witness, if I may.
Okay, first, Mr. Greenfield, is Dr. Walker requesting party status in this proceeding?
Yes, he is. He is, not only does he have a business on West Lancaster Avenue in Wayne, but he also is a 52-year resident of Radnor Township and resides at, let's see, he's at 314 Chamonix in St. David's. And he requests party status.
So aside from being a township resident, he is also a prospective competitor, or the proposed tenant is a prospective competitor of his practice. Is that correct?
It's not clear that that would be a direct competitor, but it's in the same general line of business as what his property does on West Lancaster Avenue. But again, I believe he has independent status as a resident.
Mr. Brosman, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I would object to Dr. Walker becoming a party. His personal residence is quite far away from the property, and there are many people that live much closer, and many people that also wouldn't be directly affected by this any more than a typical citizen of Radnor Township. So I don't believe he's close enough to have legal standing to become a party. As to his business, I read a copy of the letter. I didn't know Mr. Greenfield was involved. The letter that Dr. Walker wrote to the board, I got it through a right to know request asking if any comments had been made. And in my view of the letter, he's clearly writing as a business competitor. He isn't raising in the letter, specific concerns. He mentions that on a property he owned, he was denied relief, and he thinks other people should be denied for relief. I provided to your solicitor.
Mr. Brosman, let me jump in for just a second. Before you, in essence, provide your spin on the substance of the letter, which has not yet been entered into the record, why don't we go ahead and enter Dr. Walker's letter into the record? If at a minimum, he is, I would suspect, permitted to comment on the application. Whether party status is appropriate, we'll get to. But as a resident and relatively close neighbor of the property, I would think a letter of comment would be appropriate. And consequently, I'm going to direct that, and the members of the board have the letter dated January 20th, 2021 from Dr. Walker. I don't know, Norma, if you have a copy of that, but we'll just enter the text of that letter into the record. I would prefer to not read it into the record unless the solicitor suggests that's the only way to get it done so we can have a meaningful conversation. Gus?
I'm sorry, John. I was actually.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do tend to on and on and on. Do I need to read the letter into the record? Is it?
Oh, no, you don't have to.
Okay.
No,
all right.
You don't.
So
Everyone
Norma,
has it. Everyone on the board received it.
Okay,
Should we call it Walker 1?
Yeah, why don't we call it Walker 1? Thank you, Mr. Greenfield. Okay, thank you for And during that administrative item, Mr. Brosman, before I interrupted you, you were making a point. I apologize.
Thank you. And I don't object to the letter coming in as a comment. I agree, he would, as any township resident, he would have a right to make a comment. I'm talking about party status. I provided a copy of the Farmland Industries case to your solicitor that stands for the proposition, that a business competitor doesn't get standing. Interestingly, the Farmland case, the business competitor, basically was saying, he was denied some certain relief. Just prevail along that
You're
line.
cutting out, George.
Oh.
I'm not hearing you.
Thought that he was denied certain relief, that business owner, and thought that, I forget the words he used, justice would require that other people should follow the rules and not get relief. And, I think Dr. Walker, no disrespect to him, I know him. He's a fine doctor, a good person. So there's nothing personal here, but I think he's really concerned as a business competitor, I submit, and he has the right to make comment, but he wouldn't have legal standing to oppose this application. So that's my basis for requesting that he not be given party status.
May I respond briefly, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Unlike in the farmland case, and by the way, I unfortunately, I didn't see that case until about the time that we went on the air tonight. So I haven't had an opportunity to read it in the detail that I would like. And certainly at some point, I would like to have the opportunity to respond in more detail. But what I think separates this case from farmland is that Dr. Walker has a separate basis for claiming standing, and that is his residence within about a mile of the site of the property that's at issue here. And I know there are, and again, because I just became aware of the standing objection, I've not had an opportunity to do the research I'd want, but I know that there are many cases in which standing has been granted to people who live within a mile of the site. And that's about where we are here. So, Dr. Walker has a very strong case for standing based on his residency without regard to the business that he has on Lancaster Avenue.
And my response to that would be, if you let in as a party everybody that live within a mile of this commercial area, I think there's plenty of cases, and the actual facts of the standing for the test for legal standing, you have to show a direct interest in the matter more than a general resident. And I don't think he meets the test, with all due respect, based on his residency.
Mr. Solicitor, do you have any thoughts on this particular point?
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question of the applicants, and actually Mr. Greenfield. Mr. Greenfield, is your client available to be questioned on the issue of standing?
He is. He's here.
Okay.
He'd be happy to be questioned.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to rely on the letter, or if Dr. Whalen, Jim, it's your client that's making the request for standing. So do you want to present his testimony in support of his position or not?
I'm sure I'm happy to.
Do you want to rely on the letter? Because I think it would be the farmland case that the applicant has presented, Mr. Chairman. The Commonwealth Court in that case, in fact, relied on the trial court's remand to the zoning hearing board for a hearing on standing, and testimony was taken. So it may behoove us to hear from Dr. Whalen himself as to why he believes he has standing, as opposed to everyone trying to interpret that letter.
I'm happy to inquire of Dr. Walker to bring some facts into the record on standing.
And Mr. Greenfield, with that said, that this, the Commonwealth Court decision that the applicant has provided with us is pretty straightforward on this issue. And it basically, the way I read it, it's essentially saying that if someone opposing or seeking standing If the only reason they're doing it is is because of a business competition issue, that isn't deemed a direct impact for purposes of standing before a zoning board. So that's.
Well, actually, isn't that case, George, isn't that case based on a standing to appeal? Not exactly what happened in front of the hearing board, but whether or not the competitor had standing to appeal. It deals more with intervention than it does with the ability to testify or not testify. It doesn't say too much as to what happened at the trial or at the zoning hearing board level.
You're right, and that's why they remanded it for that testimony. You're correct.
Right.
So, Mr. Greenfield, why don't we, if Mr. Walker's, excuse me, Dr. Walker is available, why don't we give you the opportunity to at least explore this question?
Sure. If Dr. Walker can be let in, I'll ask him a few questions.
Mr. Chairman, I see that Dr. Walker is listed as an attendee and not as a panelist. I don't know that we were aware that he wanted to actually participate in the live hearing tonight. So I'll defer to Ian to be able to. Oh, looks like he's in.
He's on mute.
He's on mute, yeah.
Can you hear me? He's in twice, so we're getting an echo.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
We're still getting an echo, Rock.
Okay, sorry, let me turn something off here.
That should work.
Okay, Dr. Walker, you want Dr. Walker sworn, I assume?
Yes. Norma?
Is there a picture of him? To tell him to raise his hand?
Well, he just.
Okay, not a problem. Dr. Walker, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We can barely hear him.
Can you hear me?
Now.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you can see me or not. This is
No.
Rock Walker. Does that work?
So did you hear me swear you in?
I did not, sorry. Norma.
Okay, we'll start over. So you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and state your name for the record, please, and spell it.
My name is Rockland D. Walker. First name is Rocklan, middle initial D, Walker, Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker, where in Radnor Township do you live?
My home is 314 Shimoni Road.
And it's correct that you also own commercial property on West Lancaster Avenue, right?
That is correct.
How long have you lived in Radnor Township?
About 52 years.
And is it correct that your residential property is within about a mile of the site of the property that is at issue before the board tonight?
Yes, I believe so.
Now, you wrote a letter, which I think has been marked as Walker Exhibit 1, dated January 20th of 2021. And you submitted that to the township, correct?
Yes, I did.
Other than the reasons for your interest in this application that were stated in that letter, what concerns do you have about the variance relief that's been requested here?
Well, from a resident perspective, which I've been one a very long time, I attended the Radnor schools. I've coached Little League. My kids have gone through the Radnor schools. I've been a very active member in the community my whole life. And I have always looked at Wayne as a local retail kind of mecca here. And, to have a national chain come in a location like this that's asking for a variance from a retail location doesn't seem to be in keeping with what I've always known to be Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Okay, any other issues you see regarding enforcement of the zoning laws that you believe might be applicable here?
My opinion on the zoning laws? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, what I'm asking you for is your concern about the enforcement of the zoning laws
Well, I
and
have.
the basis for that.
Well, my concern from a resident's perspective is just what I said as far as what I think Wayne should be. And there's plenty of people that I've talked to, and I know that are on this call that have the same concerns, that we're trying to keep Wayne the quaint place that it is, with retail locations and restaurants and things of that sort. So that, as a resident here, a long-term resident, that's one of my concerns. As a business owner right up the street and a direct competitor, I have other concerns. And I think I should have standing that way, just because of how much effort and time I have put in. I tried to build a medical office building and have in Wayne, and I got turned down. So I invested millions of dollars a block away from what is proposed, and put up a beautiful new building, a medical building for our community. And I've been here a long time. I take care of a lot of patients, and it just seems very unfair that someone could come in from out of town and move into a location that I couldn't do and ask for a variance. That's as a business competitor. I understand. I know that I'm a business competitor, but I'm also a resident here. And I know a lot of people, a lot of patients, and a lot of friends and families that are in this area. And this isn't what we see Wayne as being. Wayne's a retail location, and they're in the Wayne Business District. I went and bought a property that was outside of the Wayne Business District so I could build my medical office building. I do the exact same thing that they propose to do. So I have no problems with competing. I just want them to go compete where I am. That's what I had to do. And I think as a resident, that's the way Wayne should be. It should be a location for restaurants and retail shops, not a medical office building.
Dr. Walker, you're aware that there are other medical facilities in Radnor Township, correct?
Yes, I am.
And in fact, there are other urgent care type medical facilities.
Yes, there are.
Do you know where those are located?
Yes, there's one on Conestoga Road, about a mile and a half from me.
Okay. Beyond urgent care, there are a number of other medical facilities in the township, correct?
Correct. You may be talking about Penn Medicine or Radnor?
Yes, for one.
Very large medical facility, yes. There are
Okay,
podiatrists, there are chiropractors, there's a lot of medical practitioners, there's numerous.
Mr. Greenfield, if we could get, I'm struggling with the relevance here.
Yeah,
because
that's all I have for the.
We're really talking about the standing. Mr. Brosman, do you have any questions for this witness?
I'll be brief. Dr. Walker, the property you mentioned that you were denied on, that was 427 East Lancaster Avenue, your old office?
Yes, it was.
That was a non-conforming use there, right?
Yes, it was.
And you sought a large expansion of the non-conforming use of variances and you were denied?
I don't believe it was a large expansion of it, but that's your opinion. I tried to get a variance to build a medical office building. And when I got turned down and spent a lot of money to do that, I had to find another building that would be suitable. And that's what I've done. So I had to purchase and invest a lot of money in the community to buy something that I could put a medical office building and not get a zoning variance in the middle of Wayne.
Well, you had a medical office building at 427 and then you.
Yes, but it wasn't part of the Wayne Business District, correct?
It was not in the district, and you sold that to a developer who got approval to build condominiums, correct?
That's what it was zoned for.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if we'll be able to make a brief argument on this testimony.
Yeah, briefly, Mr. Greenfield, if you want to start to, excuse me, to state your position on why standing is appropriate, please do so.
Well, again, Dr. Walker seeks standing status really in two respects. One, of course, is his commercial operation. And the other is as a longtime resident of Radnor Township with, as he expressed it, concern for the equitable enforcement of the zoning code, particularly in what has been designated by the township as a sensitive retail area in the center of Wayne. I would love to have an opportunity to further research this and find cases that might be different from the farmland case that George Brosman cited. And so I would hope that the board would rule that we do have standing. In the event that the board is uncertain about that, what I would like is an opportunity to do research on it and submit a short memorandum of law after the close of the hearing tonight. And in the meantime, pending that, be permitted to participate in the hearing on behalf of Dr. Walker.
Mr. Brosman.
Thank you. Having the letter and the testimony of Dr. Walker, I don't think he has shown what the cases say you need for standing, a direct impact on your property more than other citizens. He expressed a concern. He doesn't want chains coming into Radnor Township. Of course, this very building was occupied by a national chain, Lululemon. We've had Gap, we've had Starbucks, we've had Berkshire Hathaway, we've had Baskin Robbins across the street. I think South Moon Under across the street is a chain. So there's been many chains, but even if that wasn't true, that's just a general concern of citizenry, not a specific impact to Dr. Walker's property. And I think the other issues he's raised, I understand, he didn't get a variance trying to expand a non-conforming use. He was able to sell his property to a developer and relocate both out of the district. His issues were different than our issues. And the farmland case, I think, is right on point. And it did deal with the standing of the business competitor at the zoning hearing. It was remanded to the zoning hearing to see if that person had standing. And he raised concerns like Dr. Walker is that he had been denied relief and others shouldn't get relief because he was denied relief. So I think the case and other cases on standing are quite clear. He has a right to make comment, which we don't dispute, but he doesn't rise to the level of being able to be a party with all due respect.
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, a question for you.
Yes.
Is this a decision that is left to the chair or is it left to the board generally?
No, I think that's a decision that should be made by the board generally.
Okay, great. So that being the case, can I ask for a motion to consider the request for party status for Dr. Walker?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second. It's Rich Weitzman.
Okay, discussion?
Well, this is John Ward. I'll start off. I do think that while the farmland case that George Brosman presented discusses standing, it's standing at a different point during the course of the litigation. It's whether or not they're standing to appeal, whether they had to post a bond. Commonwealth Court finally said that they didn't have a standing to appeal. I think we can extrapolate from that a corporation like farmland, which is what it is, a big corporation, did not have standing originally to use this brazen attempt to do away with a competitor in a similar market. Okay, the doctor here, Mr. Dr. Walker's in a somewhat different position because he is a long-term resident as well as a business person. I think that his testimony, therefore, goes to the fact that he's a business competitor really goes to the weight of his testimony. But even though I seconded this, I think I wanted to second it because I think we should decide not to grant him party status. And maybe I misstepped there, and I'm sorry if I did. We can hear him. as
No,
a-
that's, no. We have to start talking about the issue somehow. So that's okay. You can,
No, I think
you can argue in the alternative.
Yeah, I'm going to argue against myself now in classic lawyer fashion. I guess that what I'm saying is that we heard his testimony. We can accept his testimony as a resident witness. But giving him party status, I think, could lead to some real problems like they had in farmland. Although farmland was a corporation, obviously corporations can have a residence, but we don't know where their residence was based, the corporation's residence was based on what we see of the opinion that's before us. So on that basis, well, we could, we could split the baby in half and say, sure, let him in as a resident. We heard his testimony. We can consider it for what it is, but I don't think I would grant party status. I think it would just complicate this matter. Needlessly complicate this matter.
And it's Brad here. Norma, I'm certainly on the same side as John. I've been on the board for a long time now, and certainly when we were live in the township building, we would oftentimes have just normal residents who live in the town that would try to seek party status, and we're very clear. I think you need to be affected by the property. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Because otherwise we would just be spending time listening to people that want party status, even though their interest is more about the community as opposed to specifically about the property itself and how it affects them from a property owner status. So, again, if Dr. Walker was closer to the property, I would have more sympathy, but over a mile away, or even a mile away, it's just too far.
Okay, Rich, George.
Yeah, I'm of the same thinking. A mile away, the nexus to the property at issue just isn't there for party standing. Obviously, we can consider his testimony, and it's helpful.
Okay, Rich, anything?
Nothing else to add to what I've heard. Yeah.
And likewise, I'm going to call the vote. And I believe the motion was to grant party status. So all in favor of granting party status, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Nay.
Nay.
That's 5-0. Okay. So we were closing out board questions to Mr. Kelly when we last we're back into the substance. Were there any other questions for Mr. Kelly? If not, then Mr. Brosman, if you could call your next witness.
Thank you. I would like to call Dr. Caesar. I'm going to say his name wrong. Can you help me? Can you spell that for the court reporter?
Well, we'll get,
sure.
we'll let Norma swear, Dr. Javadarian. I'm going to do it though. Javaharian, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Norma, please.
And sir, if you raise your right hand, please, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. State your full name and spell both names.
Sure, it's Caesar Javaharian, and it's spelled CAESARDJAVAHERIAN. So the D is silent, basically.
Thank you.
Shall I proceed?
Yes, please.
Caesar, what's your connection with Carbon Health?
So I'm one of the co-founders of Carbon Health. I'm the Chief Clinical Innovation Officer. I'm also an emergency medicine physician, so I practice as well as help run parts of the company.
And just for the record, Jessica, could we put up his very brief bio? Jessica, are you able to put up the bio for the doctor? You're on mute.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you couldn't see my screen anymore. Give me just one moment.
Thank you.
Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
Very briefly, Caesar, could you describe your background?
Sure. So I'm Caesar Javaharian, emergency medicine physician, co-founder of Carbon. I grew up in Connecticut. I trained in emergency medicine in New York City after graduating from University of Rochester School of Medicine. I actually was a professor at Weill Cornell in New York. And at the same time, I actually worked at Wilkes-Barre General Hospital. So not too far from Wayne. And the reason that I left academic medicine to co-found Carbon Health was really to try to fill a gap where people were ending up in the emergency department for relatively minor things that we could take care of in the outpatient setting, and they'd be saddled with huge medical bills and terrible patient service and sometimes poor patient care, depending on their chief complaint. So that was the whole motivation for creating Carbon Health. And we've done it in a way where we're leveraging technology to really democratize healthcare. So make sure that patients are aware of what's going on, what the cost is, have access to care after hours, on weekends, when most providers are closed, really with the aim of keeping them out of the hospital so that the hospital can focus on what they're really good at, which is taking care of emergencies and inpatient care and things like that.
And I know Grant Giedinger from Carbon will answer some of the questions more specifically that Mr. Nagel had about exactly how the building will be used. But can you describe in a bigger picture way what Carbon Health does, and in a bigger picture way what they would seek to do here if they were given approval?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to make access to healthcare much easier, again, much more affordable. And we collaborate with local physicians. And the way that we do that is that, instead of having to pick up a phone, make an appointment, call somebody, try to make an appointment, often get an appointment days later, which leads to people delaying the care that they need. We've created a technology where you can very easily go on our website or a mobile app, make an appointment, have an idea of when you'd be seen. You can also walk into our clinics. Our average wait time is generally less than 15 minutes, even in our busiest centers. Our kind of from the moment that you walk in to the moment you're done with all of your care, whether it's a broken ankle, an abscess that needs to be drained, a urinary tract infection, we do that within 40 minutes on average. And then we provide you with a very transparent way of seeing what your bill is. We take all insurances in most communities that we're working in. For Medicare, there's no out-of-pocket cost, as an example. And then for things that are outside of our scope, so if it's physical therapy, sometimes primary care, any of the specialist care, then we'll appropriately refer you to those physicians. What we're really trying to do is to reduce your need to go to the emergency department. And what we found is that people do delay care when it's hard to access care. So the reason that we ended up going into retail centers and where we've been successful is that people need to get health care in the same way that they can get their coffee. In today's world, people are jumping through too many hoops just to get the care that they need, and often it delays care, and you wait until you're sicker and sicker and sicker before you can be seen. So that model has worked really well, and what we've seen is that 6 years ago when we first started, communities would often object to us being in a retail setting. They thought, well, why don't you go into a medical office building? And that's very much the old way of providing healthcare, where people assume that you have to jump through hoops to get the care you need. What we found is that when we centered in retail spaces, that people were more likely to use us, had a higher satisfaction rate, and at the same time, we drew people to communities where we were located, and it enhanced the people using adjacent retail locations. So going to the cafe after their appointment, or making sure that they got some of their other errands done. So we became a very kind of sought after tenant around the country. At the same time, I'm proud to say, because we build our own technology and we run our own medical group, since the pandemic started, we've done over 700,000 tests. We've now vaccinated over 300,000 patients. So if you think of the mortality associated with coronavirus, which is 1 in every 600 people who catches coronavirus dies in the US. So if we vaccinated 300,000, we've actually saved roughly 250 lives, since it's 2 doses, to get immunity. So we're really impacting the communities that we're in. We're incredibly proud of what we're doing. And again, instead of being seen as a competitor to other medical services, we really work to enhance those other medical services because we feed into them with referrals. And then we function as the medical provider after hours and on weekends when most doctors' offices are closed.
Thank you. And I know Grant will speak to some specifics about the space, but can you comment on Mr. Nagel's question about the doctors, how often doctors are at the location or how many, things like that?
Yeah, typically varies by volume, but so we have a physician present, or nurse practitioner, physician assistant. We often grow to having 2 providers on at all times. We have X-ray capabilities. We have the equipment to do minor office procedures. So nothing dangerous, but things like for a broken ankle, we can splint the ankle, give you crutches, write a prescription. Actually, the prescription's done electronically and sent to the local pharmacy. We can do things like drain an abscess. If you cut your hand cutting a bagel on Sunday morning, instead of ending up in the emergency department, you come to us. We can suture up the laceration, make sure that that it doesn't get infected or delayed. So our services are really urgent care focused. And again, if you just look on Yelp or Google reviews, people love it. People absolutely love, no one likes to go to the urgent care. No one likes to have to go see a doctor. But if you have to go see a doctor, coming to our clinic is actually as nice of an experience as possible. We also use things like telemedicine for after hours. So if you're traveling out of the area and you forgot your prescription for your antidepressant, we would be there to help you. And the other kind of important thing is that I know that there's some backlash here with are we people coming from out of state and trying to, take over the local feel of Wayne, I would really argue that that's a terrible way to look at this. Like we are here to make people's lives better. I mean, we go into medicine to make things easier and better and make people healthier. And to say that there's a, there's a local feel for what healthcare is doesn't necessarily hold water. Also, if you're traveling to New York, you can access your Carbon app and get the medical care you need in New York and not have to try to get in touch with your physician on a weekend when you've driven up to the city. So, yeah,
Thank
sorry
you.
for my long-winded answers.
And can you describe some of the wellness, other wellness services you provide?
Yeah, so it's really whatever the community seems to need. So we're kind of a fill-in. So I have so much respect for what Dr. Walker has built. I've had a chance to do some research just over the past couple of days. But if Dr. Walker is doing an amazing job giving flu vaccines, there's going to be less of a need for us to give flu vaccines. If you're doing COVID vaccines and don't need our help with that, then we wouldn't have to fill in. If we can be helpful in administering coronavirus vaccines, preventive, some of the preventive care things like sports physicals, we're happy to fill in. But it's really varies by community and what the need is. And what we do is we listen to the patients. We work closely with providers. We try to build that personal relationship. And again, if you look at our Yelp and Google reviews, we're very proud that we rank way higher than the Mayo Clinic, way higher than Stanford, way higher than New York Presbyterian in any measure of patient satisfaction, and really, frankly, for quality scores. So we're not carrying things like opioids in our clinics. Sometimes the urgent care business gets a bad rap for just kind of being where you go to get your antibiotic pill. But we measure our clinical quality, at the highest standards possible. My background is in academic medicine, at Cornell and Columbia. And so we carry that evidence-based practice to the urgent care and the retail clinic world.
Thank you. We do have another witness that'll talk more about the specific use of the building. So I just
Okay,
wanted
George.
to let the board know that, but that's all
Thank
I
you.
had right now.
And are there any other board questions for Dr. Javaharian?
Can we get the gallery pictures back up again? So I can see, there we go.
Yeah, it's Rich Weitzman, none from me.
I have a couple of questions. Doctor, you are one of the co-founders, is this correct, of Carbon Health?
Yes, one of the co-founders and now the Chief Clinical Innovation Officer.
And where's your office located?
So we're all kind of working remotely now. Currently, I'm in Berkeley, California. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Now, where would your office be? Where are you now?
I'm in Berkeley, California. So we have an office in Berkeley, but our main headquarters are in San Francisco.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Carbon Health is a California corporation?
It is.
And what is the relationship between Dragon Health or Carbon Health and Dragoneer Investment Group?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So, so we are a technology-driven healthcare company, and what that means is that because we've built our own technology, we've had to get money from venture capital funds. Dragoneer is one of these venture capital investment funds that's funded our company so that we could build the technology and the expertise to provide the healthcare. So Dragoneer is one of our investors and a minority investor.
So the goal, I understand, is to expand out of California, open up about 100 of these clinics all across the country. Is that right?
Yeah, our goal is to really make healthcare, again, not gated in a way that's regional. So So when you're in Wayne and you've got the doctor that you love, great, you can go see them. If it's after hours and you need something like, you know, you wake up with burning when you pee and it's Sunday morning and your alternative is to go to the emergency department, we'd like you to come to us. And then if you're traveling, you know, right now, if you're in Mobile, Alabama, pretty soon in Miami or in San Francisco, New York, some of these other locations, your healthcare information on our app goes along with you. And so you can walk in and get the exact same service, whether you're in our San Francisco office on vacation or in Wayne.
So among the services you provide, you can stitch people up if they're cut correctly. You can also treat people who have burns, minor burns. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can do many things that could be done in an emergency room, so people don't have to go to emergency room. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Thank you for highlighting
you
that.
mentioned that you would always have a medical professional on duty in your offices. Do I understand that?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. And you've defined the medical professional. It could be an MD, a DO, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant. Any of those would qualify. Is that right?
That's right. And if it is a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, it would be done with close supervision from an MD or a DO.
Who would be available to her or him over the phone?
In multiple ways. So again, because we have our own technology, either through video. So for example, if you have a cardiogram done because you've had chest pain, but you're not really thinking that it's a heart attack and you end up in the urgent care, that image is shared with a physician. If there isn't one right there reading it, it's done remotely. And so so you get a physician level read for the EKG, for the X-rays, which are read remotely as well.
At your location elsewhere in the country, as well as if you get to open the store here in Wayne or open a store someplace in Wayne, are you going to have a full-time pharmacist on site?
No, we will not. Yeah, so it's not a.
So this is not an operation where if I want to go in and get one of my prescriptions filled, I wouldn't come to your office. I would go to Rite Aid or
yeah, absolutely.
Standard pharmacy, correct?
Right. That is true. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm done.
Okay. Any other questions from board? Okay, thank you, Doctor. George, you want to continue?
Thank you, Grant Giedinger.
And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, I will swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your full name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Grant Stephen Giedinger, and my last name is spelled Guidinger.
Thank you. Grant, and what's your position with Carbon Health?
I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Development.
And can you just briefly describe your background? I'm not going to take us away from the nice full screen to put up your short bio.
Sure. So I've spent now 17 years in the retail consumer property industry. I have worked for retail brands, wellness brands. I have been on the development side as well as the operator side. I'm a third generation commercial real estate professional owner, operator from both this part of the world, which I will share in a second, and the Pacific Northwest. I currently serve on the board of trustees for our trade association associated with consumer retail property, the International Council of Shopping Centers. And I grew up and have most of my first memories residing at 316 South Devon Avenue, about a half a mile from this property. I no longer reside in Wayne. I reside in Parker, Colorado with my family.
Thank you. Your audio is getting hard to hear there. Can you describe why Carbon wants to be at this location and why Carbon seeks to locate on ground floors of buildings?
Yes. And please interrupt me if you're having communication issues at all. So Carbon Health, due to the nature of what we do, we deploy the brick and mortar side of care on ground floor retail. A very important component of that is generally having an on-grade or lack of slope associated with our entry point, and a large entry point at that with double doors for convenience. Most of what we try to do from a real estate deployment standpoint, looking at our more micro strategy as it pertains to communities, is to position in what we would call a community or high street component associated with a pocket market, AKA a core community, versus simply positioning off every major freeway, which classically restaurants or other retail brands will classically do to maximize drive times for potential customers. We look to ingrain ourselves within communities. This part of town specifically addresses both our user concerns with patients, as well as being able to position within the heart of a community to really try to make sure that those that we have the opportunity to serve, both through online, the mobile application, and through the brick and mortar, are able to have easy access to us within the community. Lastly, I'd say from a development standpoint in greater Philadelphia, another location from which that's a great example or analog, we have something coming through for opening later this year, as we hope this will as well, at the Promenade at Upper Drescher, or excuse me, the Promenade at Upper Dublin, which is another example of a center with community type needs, from which we think is most appropriate and relevant when deploying a piece of real estate to support care.
Thank you. And can you describe what is generally anticipated here for hours and staffing and things of that nature?
Mm-hmm. So our hours are generally 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Generally speaking, we'll have staff anywhere between 6 to 8 care team members at any time. We generally always require that staff to park either off premises or not in front of the open spaces from which customers that need care can park. By example, as a part of this, we are not planning to allow our employees to park on site at the asset. We are going to look to facilitate that on nearby lots associated with agreements that we'll have to come and work towards. Well, I'm sorry if I might have missed the second part of that question, George.
I think you hit the hours. Did you hit the anticipated number of employees?
Yep, 6 to 8.
Okay. With regard to parking, I was involved in another application before the board where the applicant agreed to purchase from Radnor Township the smart card passes a certain number, and would Carbon Health agree to purchase up to 8 annual smart card passes from Radnor Township so the employees could park right across the street?
Yes, and it's something that even prior to this this meeting that we have here today, that we had agreed to with John as a proactive measure to ensure that parking is not an issue.
And based on the proposed operation and your experience, do you feel that the parking that is provided on site will be adequate and not cause problems for the community to handle the patients who come?
Yes, and also I'll say another sort of analog to our market deployment strategy is when you position yourself in places of this nature, you gain the ability to have people who are otherwise easily dropped off, take Uber, or even in my cases, was growing up half a mile away, probably walking if the need is appropriate. So we don't generally have parking demands, I think, that you would expect from, by example, Lululemon or Anthropology, or certainly not a coffee shop or a restaurant.
Thank you. And now, Dr. Javarian focused a lot more on the medical side of things. Could you comment on other non-medical things, wellness, personal services, any other things that would be done here?
Yeah, I think he did a wonderful job summarizing what we are at our core and what the medical technology piece does for people, after they leave and even before, as they prep for care. We do have a section of our premises which are built out for a small retail section. Think of it similar if you were walking into a yoga studio like a Core Power Yoga, which is a pretty well-established brand, or a bar or Pilates location where they have certain elements of what I would call culture, with t-shirts and mugs and items from which, aside separate from the medical equipment and wellness type equipment that we can provide to people as part of their access to care. Other than that, I would say, the wellness component of what we do in the rooms and how we've constructed the property allows for really wellness in general as we return. So people come in with urgent needs. They also come in with, call it preventative needs. And we're happy to help direct either to an appropriate team. I think we mentioned PT, physical therapy or therapeutic massage, things that we don't do, that we connect with local business within every community to be able to refer out to as well.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Okay, are there questions from members of the board for this witness?
None from me.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Brosman, anything else for your case?
No, I would ask that my exhibits be made part of the record, and we could provide Norma a copy of the ones that we used, so she will have that, and Mr. Economides and Kevin Kachansky. If I could be given a chance to sum up after public comment or at the appropriate time, I would appreciate that.
Okay, the exhibits will be entered without objection. I do have a threshold question, and really it relates to whether this is an office use or a retail use. I'd like to hear your thoughts on why this is a retail use, because if it's not a retail use, I'm not certain, I leave it to the discussion of the board, but I'm not certain at this point that you've made the case for a use variance. And I know that you've suggested that the first floor use of this property is a dimensional variance, but I'm not terribly sanguine with that line of reasoning either. So please perhaps educate me as to why this is not an office use.
Sure, thank you for that opportunity to do that. If you look at the WBOD provisions 28053.7. There's very few uses that are allowed. There's A through E, basically, and F are accessory uses. However, A is retail uses, and it's very, very broad, not in the typical sense of a retail use. It says retail uses include, and it gives up to five categories, and within those categories, there's many, many examples and many things that wouldn't necessarily be considered retail. It talks about variety stores, bakery, ice cream shop. Personal services are permitted. It gives some examples. Things like barber shops and beauticians, but those examples aren't limiting. It says including those. Restaurants, even catering establishments, banks, arcades, things like that. So my position is that, you know, retail is broader in the Wayne business overlay than it is traditionally thought of. It's not defined with any limitations. And the cases suggest that, you know, a permitted use should be construed broadly and expansively. I believe there have been other cases where the board may have decided things like yoga studios and things like that qualified as personal services, although they're not listed. So yes, we have medical use here, that's clear. But I think that's quintessential a personal service. Some of the other things that were provided, I provided a case in my application, the Rohrer case, R-O-H-R-E-R, I think it's spelled. It's a Commonwealth Court case where a use qualified as two things under the ordinance. One was as a public utility use and one was as a car washing facility. And the local zoning board said this use is more specific, more like a car wash than a public utility use. It was a bus washing facility used by a bus carrier that had a public utility certificate. And the board said, you know, you're more like that than the other thing. So we're going to put you into that category and you're not allowed in this zone. The Commonwealth Court reversed that and said, you know, that's not giving the other term the broadest and most permissive use. It's not restricted in that way. You shouldn't interpret it that way. So that's why we think it can qualify really as both things, retail use, as well as I'm sure it could be called an office as well. I understand, I heard you think that's a use variance. I think we're here for a dimensional variance, but I understand your point. My point is offices are permitted in the Wayne Business Overlay District. It's just a locational thing and within a building, you know, should they be on the ground floor or above? But the board will have to decide that. So I think if it was an office, we have sought a really a dimensional variance because the use is permitted in the district. It can be even in the same building. It's just a locational thing in the district within a building. So that's, I think it's more of a dimensional thing, not that the use isn't permitted, but I understand you could have a contrary thought on that.
Okay, thank you. There are, I believe, a number of folks that are on the line who may wish to participate in public comment. Ian, are you, you have an indication of folks that might be raising their hands or whatever we do on Zoom to get people's attention?
That's correct. Anyone who wants to make up a public comment should use the raise hand feature, and then I can unmute them in turn, allow them to speak.
Okay, so if you're on the Zoom and wish to make a comment, please raise your hand and Ian will take care of that.
Ian, this is Dr. Walker. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I make a comments based on the merits of the application?
Dr. Walker, I believe you've had your opportunity to comment earlier and you've already submitted a letter. So let's get to, let's,
separate though. This is on the merits.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Excuse me.
sorry.
Thank you. Let's get to other folks that are online to get their comments first.
Do we get called on or do we just comment?
You're on.
Okay, great, perfect.
I need her full name.
First
sure.
time listener, first time
hi.
caller, long time listener.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Norma, if you could swear in.
Oh, sure. My name is Joanna Bell Merriam.
Okay, you do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and spell your first and last name also.
Sure. First name's Joanna, Joanna. Last name is hyphenated. The first part is Bell, Bell, hyphen Merriam, Merriam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could,
sure.
Sorry, if you could identify are you a township resident? If you are, your address.
Yes, I am a township resident. I live at 214 East Beech Tree Lane.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm a township resident and I'm also a physician. I am a physician at I Am Health, so I work for Dr. Walker. And I have listened to this whole presentation and, well, first, I feel a little that talking about wellness as a personal service and a retail business, to me as a physician, seems it's a profession. It's not a retail business. And I feel as though if you look at Carbon Health's website, it has a lot of primary care written all over it. Yet I did not hear either of the presenters from Carbon Health or their lawyer mention primary care, and they sort of were trying to roll in personal services or wellness instead of primary care. And I think, obviously wellness is part of primary care, but their website really promotes them as a place to get both urgent care and primary care. And if the heart of the matter is whether this is a medical office or a retail, I think that it seems to me that it would be a medical office. So, and obviously, yes, I am a competitor and that's fine. We do an amazing job. I'm not concerned about that. But again, if we want to keep Wayne as, which I walk to the bookstore, I walk to the Griffin, I walk to get my hair done. That's more the heart of what I think of retail and personal service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Are there other online participants?
There are.
Because they kept saying.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, who is this?
Hi, this is Viral Prajapati. I'm a physician assistant. Yes.
John, I think Joanna Bell Mayer better.
Sorry, who's speaking?
Well, that was John Lord. I think John is concerned that Dr. Bell Merriam's mic was still open. Okay, thank you.
Close now, thank you. We're getting some feedback.
Okay, please, sorry, the technology is still new to us. Let's continue.
Shall I swear him in?
Yes, please.
My name is Viral Prajapati.
Okay, sir, You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, state your full name and spell first and last.
Sure. Viral Prajapati. First name is Virel. Last name is Prajapati. P like Peter. Rajapati.
Thank you.
So yes.
I'm sorry, are you a township resident?
I am not a township resident. I am an employee also of I Am Health.
Okay, I'm gonna just determine that your testimony is gonna be duplicative of that which we've heard before, and we thank you for participating. Is there anyone else who is online and who would like to comment?
John, am I not allowed to speak anymore? This is Dr. Walker.
John, you're muted.
Yeah, that was my best work of the day, everybody. Yes, Dr. Walker, it's now time for brief observations from you as well.
So I can speak?
Yes, that's what I said.
Thank you, John. So I want to speak more on the merits at this point of what the applicant's trying to achieve. They essentially it's an identical to business to what I do about 200 yards down the street. And mine's a medical office, and I do urgent care and I do primary care. And what they're trying to say is that they're retail, and they're no more retail than I am. And I'm not saying that they're not good doctors, they don't have a nice program, but they are a medical office building just like I have. And I don't think that they've shown that there's hardship in this case, that they need a zoning variance to be able to practice in that location. There are other locations that they can practice in Wayne, which they would not need a variance. I think also they've made the argument that there are a lot of locations that are open in Wayne because of COVID, and I struggle also with COVID, and it's been tough on my business. But I think this is a temporary thing, and it will pass. All this will pass. And again, I don't think that's a legitimate argument at this point in time to change our zoning in this location because of the struggles that retail is having. And again, I don't believe that they're a retail type of business. Lastly, I don't believe that their argument that this could be construed as a retail location is enumerated in the code at all. They're clearly a medical office building, just like I am. And I think that they haven't proven the case that there should be a zoning variance because there's hardship here. There are other locations they can come, and I would gladly have them compete with me and then might enjoy working together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker. Kevin, in terms of the email comment line, I see only one comment. Is that correct?
Correct, from Restore Chiropractic?
That's correct.
Yes, that's the only
Okay.
one I've seen.
Okay, so I will read this into the record. It's relatively brief. This is an email dated this evening, 8:15 p.m. from Restore Chiropractic. Subject: oppose urgent care at Lululemon location. I was just notified this evening of a proposal to change the ordinance to allow an urgent care facility to go into the Lululemon on Lancaster Avenue. I'm a business owner directly across the street. I realize there are a lot of vacancies right now, but I think as a community, we need to be thoughtful of what we want our town to have available. There are already 3 urgent care facilities within a few miles, open paren, that I was actually able to get a neighbor to tonight early after one was closed paren. The biggest issue that I have with this is supporting local businesses. A local community member just built a gorgeous new facility for us. Should we be encouraging out-of-state businesses to change an ordinance to compete with him? While I understand the desire to be able to fill empty spaces, I think that we need to be smart about what we want our location to, in town, or in our town, excuse me, to look like. Restaurants, shops, services, locally owned. Pretty soon, it's just going to be filled with the urgent cares and pharmacies and nothing that makes Wayne what it is. I am opposed to this ordinance change request. Respectfully, Dr. Daniel Gray of Restore Chiropractic. And that ends that letter of comment. And there being no other letters of comment that we've received, that's going to close out the public comment portion of this proceeding.
John, I
At
have
this point,
a few other members with their hands raised.
oh, I'm sorry, Ian. You see, I can't. Okay, my apologies.
We've
We're not closed out yet.
Mhm.
Let's keep going. Go ahead.
I have Emily Fisk.
Good evening, Ms. Fisk. Where do you reside?
I reside in Bridgeport.
Okay. You're unfortunately the thoughts that you. Go ahead.
I was going to say I work in Radnor Township. I've worked there for many years.
And where's that?
West Lancaster Avenue at I Am Health.
I'm sorry.
Another I Am Health. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We know the I Am Health position on this matter. Thank you for your time. Ian, who's next?
Sorry, Kristen Cairns. One moment.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for listening to me tonight, everyone.
Okay. First of all, before we get there, do you live in the township?
I live at 221 Walnut Avenue in
Okay,
Wayne.
great.
Yes,
Yep.
so I am a resident.
Okay, great.
Shall I swear?
Wait, Norma, please swear, Ms. Coons.
Yes, ma'am. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, and spell your full name, please, first and last.
Kristen Kearns.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kearns, thanks.
You got it. So I understand with all the vacancies in Wayne, this is a challenge, but I also understand the business district of Wayne is something unique that is going wayside on a daily basis. We can't turn the town of Wayne business district, I'm not saying outside of the business district, just the business district, into a King of Prussia. We just can't. And we already have urgent care, literally, I think I counted 5 buildings up. So I'm just asking, this is all I'm asking, is to keep the integrity of Wayne what it is a full-on restaurant, retail, small business, homegrown town, because these places are just going away. So that is my input. I understand the vacancies in Wayne and the challenges in Wayne, but I also understand the integrity and the long term of keeping a small town and a small business district just that. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kearns. Ian, is there anyone else wishing to comment?
Yes, the next one is next commenter, Kerry Reef.
Hello,
Hello.
Ms.
Hi.
Reef.
Yes.
Good
hi.
evening.
I'm a Wayne resident.
Okay, what's your address, please?
137 Homestead Road in Wayne, Pennsylvania. I am also an employee of I Am Health. I'm a nurse practitioner there. I just wanted to say also I'm a friend and neighbor of Dr. Gray as well, who sent in the letter tonight.
Okay. I'm sorry, it may not seem like it, but we really do have limited time. And if we're going to get the same comment from the same group of folks, we understand the position that it would be taken. And we thank you for participating this evening, but we're going to have to move on.
Okay, I understand.
Sorry, thank you. Ian, anyone else?
Yes, Martin Wilson.
Hello.
Mr. Wilson?
Yep, sorry.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, here.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. What's your address, sir?
335 Sugartown Road in Wayne.
Is that Tredyffrin Wayne or Radnor Wayne?
Radnor Wayne.
Okay. Okay.
I would just ask that the request for zoning relief for Carbon Medical to convert
Do you want me
retail
to swear
space.
him in?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry
yeah,
about
I'm
that.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yes, I'm sorry, Norma. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much. Just
So I
state your
just
name
asked
for the
that-
record, sir.
Sure, Martin Wilson.
Thank you.
And address 335 Sugartown in Wayne. So I would ask that the request for zoning relief for Carbon Medical to convert retail space in downtown Wayne to medical space be denied for the following reasons. While we all understand the need for viable new businesses to open in Wayne, we have no urgent need for a fourth such business in our small town. In addition, it would seem unfair to have previously denied zoning relief for the same use for a truly local medical professional, citizen, taxpayer, and employer while granting the relief for a California-based venture capital startup firm. For this
Mr.
reason,
Wilson, Mr.
Yep.
Wilson, I'm sorry. May I ask who you work for?
Sure, I'm just, I work for myself. I'm actually a physician, but I'm an ophthalmologist in Paoli.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yep, sure. So for this reason, I would respectfully request that the zoning board deny the request for zoning variance relief in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian?
That is the last hand raise I'm seeing on my end.
Okay, great. Now we can close public comment. At this point, we'll need a motion to begin deliberations.
Mr. Riley, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's George Brosman.
Yeah.
Could I have a chance to respond and make a brief summary to the public comment?
Mr. Solicitor, my notes are sketchy. Did Mr. Brosman make a closing comment previously?
He had the legal argument, but I don't know. It's your hearing, Mr. Chairman. It's your discretion whether you want to allow anything else after public comment.
And I'm looking at the faces of the other board members saying it really is my hearing and I'm going to hear about it later. So yes, Mr. Brosman, please, if you could briefly close things out, I would appreciate that. Thanks.
I'll try to be brief. Could I ask, there was another gentleman from Carbon Health that wanted to say something in response to comments he's heard. Would that be allowed?
No, that will not be allowed.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be brief. I know this has taken a long time. With all respect to Dr. Walker, who I know not well, but he does a fine job. He's built a beautiful building, but the opposition here is really from business competitors. I found it very interesting that the Restore Chiropractic sent in an email because we were going to go into this. They are on the ground floor, right across the street, behind the South Moon Under. So there are office uses on the ground floor. There are in Wayne, you could call some of those medical offices. You could call them personal services retail as we have. I think what we're saying here is we could qualify as both. And with the retail, this is kind of an emerging use. It's different than what Dr. Walker does. I know he says it's the same, but it's more of a retail experience. I do think it can fall under the personal services category. I believe the board has allowed things like yoga studios, even though there's a separate provision for studios in the WBOD only being on the second and third floors. I would also observe, I know the rules are the rules, but this property is on the very edge of the Wayne Business Overlay District. We have a one-story building here, and this isn't North Wayne Avenue where you have to worry about the activity on the ground floor as much to the commercial core. And as I said, there's the chiropractor office across the street. There have been other medical personal service uses on the ground floor in the WBOD, and I think they've been a good complement. So we ask that you would approve our request, notwithstanding the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brosman. Okay, would a member of the board wish to make a motion so we can start deliberations?
Mr. Chairman, it's Brad here. I just have a real quick question for Kevin, if it's possible. Kachansky.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, our zoning officer. Yeah. Kevin, has the township ever cited Rite Aid for having a medical office in the WBOD?
No, Rite Aid, we would consider that there is ancillary and accessory uses to the principal retail use, but the principal retail use of Rite Aid is a retail use.
So you wouldn't consider that a mixed use property?
I would not.
You would consider that more of an all right. That's an interesting interpretation. Okay, great. That was my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I will make a motion if you want as well. I'd be more than happy to do that. My motion is to approve. Excuse me. And Gus, maybe I need to rephrase this. I would like to basically propose that it's a permitted use under section 2853.7. So my motion would be that it is, my determination is it's a permitted use under section 53.7A.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Gus? Is that what it is? Okay.
Great.
Is there a second?
It's Rich Weitzman. I'll second it.
Thanks, Rich. Board discussion?
I'll go since I made the motion. You know, I'll be the first one to say, you know, that our code is not perfect. It absolutely is not. And there are certain areas of our code that needs to be cleaned up, modernized for kind of the way things are done. I mean, I remember us having a hearing about a bank having an ATM, but somehow that was not available under our code. I think, in my opinion, this is one of those areas where it's vague or it is under interpretation in terms of the use. Because I'm not convinced that a medical practitioner is an office use. I mean, to me, I think absolutely an urgent care could be something that's not a pure office use, especially when it's something that is walk-in or therapy where you're, you know, I consider, you know, me working in an office building where we all have desks and that's what we do day in and day out, as opposed to a facility where there's a lot of foot traffic. So, you know, when I take a look at Mr. Brosman's brief, you know, I'm certainly compelled by Roar that basically saying that, you know, it should be, you know, if it's not crystal clear, it should be viewed expansively and then in favor of the landowner. And so that's really where I'm coming from, which is it's not clear under the code. I think you could certainly say that, you know, under A1, this could be a similar use providing sales and services to customers. I mean, that, you know, we are a customer of our doctor. There's no doubt about that, especially one where I can walk in and get treated and then leave and never come back again. And, you know, or the phrase personal service shop. I mean, again, I'm coming in there to get fixed. So I think there's a reasonable interpretation for that. But overall, I'm more saying that I think this is just, it's not clear under the code if it fits or it doesn't fit. And therefore, I think under Roar, we have an obligation to the landlord for the broadest interpretation. As always, look, I'm not compelled by the argument, while I would love to have all local businesses in Wayne, that's not zoning, because otherwise, Gap wouldn't have been here, and, and any other chain, we wouldn't have, Bertucci's on the line, but, Chili's, all these other places that, I can't discriminate, and nor can we in the zoning board based on how someone is funded or if they're from the area or not from the area. We're just looking at the merits of the zoning case in front of us. So to me, who owns it is irrelevant. What they're going to do there is clearly relevant. And to me, it's saying, is the zoning code clear enough for me to say, is a variance needed or not? And to me, it's not. And for that reason, I think we have to have a broad interpretation for it. I'm done.
Other board members? George?
Yeah, I'll go next. I agree that we really have to limit this analysis to the zoning code as it is. And I totally agree that it needs some work. The particular issue, if you look at the definitions, the definition of personal, it's personal service shop listed under retail. And they do have a list of examples, not, it doesn't exclude other uses, but the types of uses that they do set forth in the ordinance, barbershop, beautician, things like that. I think it's a big stretch to include a medical office in that definition. I just don't think that was the intent of the statute or the ordinance. The use of an office, there is a definition for office in the ordinance. It's a section right before, and the definition of office includes a room used by professionals. And that's certainly what we have here. So I think it fits squarely within the definition of an office. And the fact that it is a one-story building, that's unfortunate. Now this company seems like a wonderful company. And again, we're focused on the zoning ordinance here. I don't care if they're from California. I don't care where they're from. In fact, I would love to see them in Radnor if they can find another building. But, again, faced with the language in the ordinance, I don't think we can grant the application. That's all.
This is John Lord. I'd like to make an observation myself on that point. I think that it's an incredible torturing of the code to say that this is that it fits into one of these retail definitions. It just doesn't work. I mean, historically, medical offices are medical offices. This has got nothing to do with a retail operation. People just don't wander into this store and look around and think, well, maybe I'll buy this, or maybe I'll buy that, or whatever. I even asked the question regarding the pharmacy. It says in here that which are found in a retail pharmacy and other retail use. For example, prescription and non-prescription medications. I asked, well, are you going to have a pharmacist on staff? No, of course not. They wouldn't. I mean, you couldn't. There's licensing problems. There's food and drug problems. There's all sorts of issues you have to satisfy, and they don't do it. Okay, it was an honest answer, and I was not surprised by the answer. And when you go to their website, which I did, and I looked at it very carefully, none of the stuff they do, with the exception of giving injections, goes on at pharmacies. As a matter of fact, the giving of injections at pharmacies is really a case of the tail of the dog. That's all. I mean, it's just there to get people in. It's a loss leader. They always put it in the back of the store, so you can walk through all the multiple bags of candy and gift cards and the rest of the trash that they sell in the pharmacy. It's just a marketing tool. just like, you know, Wawa gives away the gasoline because they want people in there buying their sandwiches and other things. I think that it's a creative idea that they have here. It's probably a wonderful idea. But I wonder if the urgent care operation that moved into the old gas station on Conestoga Road by Sproul Road, I wonder if they wanted to come over here, but said, you know what, we're not going to fit into the Wayne business overlay. So they decided to go where they went. I think it's, I understand that the code needs some adjustment. I mean, these codes are living things. I mean, they don't, one size doesn't fit all. I mean, there's other issues that have to be addressed, like Airbnbs and things like that. But that doesn't mean torturing the code and stretching it to the breaking point. If the drafters of the code wanted to have medical offices in there, they're going to put in medical offices, because that's all this is. It's being portrayed as this wonderful new invention. And in certain respects it is, because as the one of the founders said, it was there so people don't have to go to the emergency room. And well, that's what people do, and they still do. Well, that's a pure non-retail operation. And they're stepping in to take a piece of that.
But John, how is this any different than a beautician or a hair salon?
Well, it's a hell of a lot different. For one thing,
because you're saying that the doctor is different than a person that cuts hair. I'm saying the business is the same. They take appointments on their app. You can call them up, take an appointment. You can walk in. They perform a service, and then you leave. How is that different? I get that they're doctors. I mean, that's awesome. But I'm just saying, but in terms of what service they're providing to a customer, it is identical.
It's not retail. It's never been retail. As one of the people said, look,
look, retail has a category of personal service shop. And I'm just saying, if an urgent care, the primary purpose of the urgent care is you make an appointment or you walk in. And I'm going, how is that different than Philly Bloke? That's the same exact thing that I do there.
Beautician, you shouldn't be bleeding from any orifice.
What is that? But what does that have to do with anything? I'm getting someone to get my hair cut versus someone to stop bleeding. It's still a service. And let's be clear, urgent care didn't exist when this code was written. So therefore, you can't say that urgent care is a medical office, because honestly, it didn't exist.
Of course it did. It was called an emergency room. It was called your doctor's office.
It's part of a hotel, of a hospital. It wasn't a standalone business that was separate from a hospital.
There's been medical clinics available for quite some time. They just don't call them urgent care. Urgent care is a nice.
They weren't prevalent. That's the difference. They were still, family-owned businesses.
Well,
but there was never. I could never walk into my doctor and try to get an appointment. I mean, it's impossible.
Call your doctor. You can call your doctor. How do you know you're going to be?
I'm saying the characteristics of an urgent care are very similar to everything it's in a personal service shop. To me, it is. And you're distinguishing them because they're doctors. And I just kind of go, boy, that's putting them up on a high pedestal. And I realize that they do fantastic things, but they are service providers. In this particular case, they are service providers. I can walk in, I can get service done.
They've always been treated differently. They're
okay. Not on the zoning code.
Act in Pennsylvania, the M-Care Act, to protect the medical profession. The hairdressers don't get that. You go into a
what does that have to do with zoning? It's about service. That's all.
I mean, it's a wholly different operation. I mean, just because they've sexed up the name a little bit doesn't mean that all of a sudden they become just a regular pharmacy, which is selling more foodstuffs than they are prescriptions half the time. I just think that if they wanted to put medical offices in there, because that's what this is, it could have been put in there. Just because they changed the name to urgent care doesn't change anything.
And I'll argue that Rite Aid and CVS both have 2 medical offices in their building. And I would not agree with Kevin that it's an accessory use to a pharmacy, because it's not an accessory use to a use that's permitted under this code. It isn't.
All we can do it at Rite Aid and the other places give injections. That's all.
No, absolutely not. I've been treated there. My son has been treated there. It was an urgent care for us. It was the same exact thing. We walked in. So I'm just going, you can't say it's fine for Rite Aid because, well, it's primarily a pharmacy and it's only a little, it's only a little part of the building and it's not really the primary business of Rite Aid. I'm going, who cares? That has nothing to do with the zoning code. I'm saying, are they doing a use that is permitted there? And if the answer is, well, Rite Aid can do it because it's just, there's a bigger pharmacy around it. If the door, I guess, to the urgent care in the back of Rite Aid, if there was a separate door, that wouldn't be good. But now that the entrance is through Rite Aid, it's fine. Like I'm going, wow, that seems to be a fairly evil interpretation for one versus the other.
I think it would be a huge change to the zoning code to put it in.
It's not. John, this is not putting it in. This is interpretation. We don't have to follow. We don't have to follow. This is one case.
Okay.
That's it. But I'm just going to say, this is one case. This case has no bearing on any other case that we're ever going to have. We're not writing anything into the code. You're making an interpretation. That's all.
Well, your crystal ball is a lot clearer than mine. I'm looking at the code. We should be guided by the code.
And I would add, I could probably think of as was stated in the testimony, there's probably a number of examples we can all think of that we're scratching our heads saying, boy, that seems like they're in violation of this ordinance. Well, we're not deciding those other cases tonight. We're deciding this case. And, if there's existing non-compliant businesses out there, that's for another day. We have to decide this case.
Let me add something too. On this Rohrer case, that did not come before the court on a variance. It was on a special exception. It's something else we should keep in mind. It's the fact pattern is completely different than what we have here, I think. But
okay, Rich, any thoughts that haven't been covered yet?
I'm afraid to jump in. No, I'm not going to belabor anything that I heard. I am in agreement with George and John. However, I think it's a bit of a tortured use of the word retail. If I steal some language from the applicant's memorandum, that the plain definition of what retail involves, I don't see how a medical facility such as this meets that definition. So under the motion as it stands, I'm going to be voting opposed.
Yeah, and similarly, I am going to be voting in opposition to the motion as well. This is not an easy case, and this is not the ideal zoning code to analyze this thing under, because I think first, this is not an issue of someone, a carpetbagger coming in from out of town. That's irrelevant to me. Given the fact that Lululemon vacated the space, we don't discriminate against folks coming in from outside the community. In fact, we welcome as many as we can get. This is simply a question of whether, this use is a retail use, and I know the personal service shop term is used in the code. I think, you think barber shop, you think hairdresser, you think that, a nail salon, perhaps, those sorts of personal services that do not need a medical professional to conduct the business or to conduct the operations at the location. So, and George rightly points out the definition of office as including, I'm looking for the language again, a room used by a profession. I am torn, but I think at the end of the day, this is a proposed office use as opposed to a retail use. and consequently, I'm going to oppose the motion. So we'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor?
Well, hey, John, I'll just withdraw it. It's easy. Let's just save time.
No.
Someone just makes another.
Keep it so we can vote on it.
No, now you have to make another motion.
No, you don't.
Parents.
No. Let's just vote on the motion.
We're going to vote on the motion. All in favor of Brad's motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Can we do a roll call?
Oh, sure, we can do a roll call. Mr. Lord?
Nay.
Mr. Nagel?
Nay.
Mr. Weitzman?
Nay.
Mr. Delizia?
I'm going nay. You got to go 5-0, I guess.
And I will also vote nay. Thank you, Norma. Now we turn to the second request for relief, which is predicated on the finding that this is an office use as opposed to a retail use. And the relief that is requested is what is described as a dimensional variance that would otherwise permit the use of the space as an office on the first floor in the Wayne Business Overlay District. I'll entertain a motion on that request.
It's
I was going to say I'll make a motion, and my motion is to deny a variance under section 280, 53.7b and 53.10.
Okay, is there a second? Okay,
Yeah,
board discussion on this motion.
Yeah, to me, it's real simple. There's no hardship, and I don't consider this a dimensional variance.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Analysis.
Yeah,
I agree. Any other board discussion? Okay, we'll call the vote. We'll call a roll call. Thank you, Norma. The motion is, I'm sorry, the motion was to deny the request. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Lord, are you in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel,
In favor.
Mr. Weitzman,
aye.
Mr. Delizia,
Aye.
and I'm in favor of that motion as well. So that vote is 5-0, and that determination renders moot the final, well, actually it was covered in Brad's. Brad, yours covered also the parking? Well, it doesn't really matter.
It didn't matter because they can't get
Yeah.
office use, then does parking's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
it's not office use, so you don't need the variance. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience in getting through that. This is an issue of, to my knowledge, we haven't seen one like this in a while, so it takes a bit of time to go through. I hope the applicant can find an alternate location from which to conduct the business, because it sounds like an outstanding idea, and we'd love to have the operator in Radnor Township, but unfortunately our zoning code does not permit the use at this location. Okay, thank you. Final case. This is Appeal 3089. The applicant Davis Development Group LLC, property located at 471 Barclay Road and zoned R1 residential. The applicant is seeking relief from section 280-15C to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling on a corner lot that will reduce the front yard setback along South Ithan Avenue to 35 feet instead of the 60 feet required. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. My name is Al Fiscaldo. I represent the applicant, Davis Development Group, LLC. With me tonight, I have two witnesses, TJ Davis. He's the managing member of the applicant, Davis Development Group, and Paul Hughes is our civil engineer. If I could, I'd like to provide the board with just a summary of the application. I know it's been a long evening. Just to summarize what we're asking for tonight. I had previously submitted to Mr. Kachansky and to Mr. Economides our exhibit package consisting of 10 exhibits. I believe they were also transmitted to all the board members. That packet consists of Exhibit 1 is the zoning board application. Exhibit 2 is a parcel map showing this property in relation to its surrounding neighborhood. Exhibit 3 are 2 aerials, again showing the property in the context of the neighborhood. Exhibit 4 is a zoning plan prepared by Kimley Horn and Associates. The property exhibits or property photographs are tab 5. There is a sample rendering and floor plan of the proposed structure at tab 6. There is a letter of support from the adjacent neighbor to the east at tab 7, and Mr. Davis can speak to his conversations with the other abutting property owners on Barclay and on the road behind. Proof of mailing as Exhibit 8. The deed and the consent of the property owner is at tab 9, and Mr. Hughes's CV is at tab 10. Davis Development Group is the equitable owner of the property pursuant to an agreement of sale. Property is zoned R1. I don't know if Mr. Myers can pull up maybe Exhibit 4 for the board just to orient the property for everyone. While we're waiting, the property is approximately 1 acre in size. It's non-conforming as to lot size, slightly smaller than an acre. It is irregularly shaped. It's a corner property with frontage on South Ithan Avenue and on Barclay Road. The rear property line is on a diagonal with the property narrowing as it approaches South Ithan. And the property line along South Ithan is also on a diagonal. The property is narrowest at the intersection of Barclay and South Ithan and expands as it moves to the south. Barclay Road is a residential street. All the other homes on Barclay front or face Barclay. South Ithan is, as you know, is a kind of collector street, local street. Great. If you could just flip that to the right, I think that's possible. Great, that's perfect. So as you can see, we're at the corner of South Ithan and Barclay. Barclay is running up and down on the page, South Ithan left and right on the page. Across South Ithan on the opposite side is the blue route. So as you would come down Barclay towards South Ithan, all you would see is the sound barrier protecting the residents from the noise from the blue route. So there's that sound barrier wall. There's an existing one-story ranch house on the property built in 1970, so it's an older house. As you can see, it's sort of awkwardly positioned on the property, facing Barclay and South Ithan. And what we propose to do, and you can also see that structure is non-conforming in that it is outside of the building envelope and invades both the side yard setback, to the east of the property, adjacent to 467 Barclay Road, which is at the top of the page. It also encroaches on the front yard setback on the Ithan Avenue side of the property. The zoning code requires, since it is a corner property, that it has two front yards. The front yard setback in the R1 district is 60 feet. So as you can see, that creates a long, narrow, sort of awkwardly shaped building envelope. The applicant proposes to construct a new single-family dwelling on the property to raise the existing dwelling and to locate that dwelling so that it faces Barclay Road like all the other houses on Barclay, so that it engages with the residential street rather than facing the sound barrier across South Ithan. This structure as proposed, you can see the building envelope that we're proposing in gray there. This structure would cure the existing nonconformity along the eastern side yard setback. And we propose a 35-foot setback on the South Ithan side. And the reason we selected 35 is that certainly it allows the construction of a appropriately sized dwelling in conformity and the character with the surrounding neighborhood. But also the aggregate side yard setback in the R1 district is 60 feet. So with the house oriented to face Barclay, the Ithan side of the property really reads as a side yard at that point. And so we tried to conform with the spirit and intent of the R1 district and to create an aggregate setback on what really are the side yards of 60 feet. Otherwise, the proposed structure would conform with all the other requirements of the R1 district. I'd be happy to have Mr. Davis speak to the type of dwelling he's looking to construct and his conversations with all the surrounding neighbors, all of which were very supportive and complimentary of his application this evening.
Okay, that would be fine. Norma, would you like to swear the witness in?
Yes, Mr. Davis. If you raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your full name for the record, please.
It's TJ Davis.
Does that stand for anything?
Thomas.
Thank you.
And TJ, you are the owner of Davis Development Group LLC,
Yes.
and you're the equitable owner of this property.
Yes.
Could you and maybe it's possible for Mr. Myers to pull up the property photographs at tab 5. That's great. Maybe just flip them. TJ, it's going top to bottom through these pictures. Can you describe for the board what these pictures depict? And since I took them, I'll tell you that this first one is from South Ithan. Can you see the picture, TJ?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
This is taken from South Ithan.
And that's a picture of the existing structure?
It is. Yes.
Okay. And then could you, Mr. Myers, could you just scroll up? Is that another picture of the house from South Ithan?
It is.
Okay. And can you please keep scrolling, Mr. Myers? And what does this picture show, TJ?
This is the corner. This is actually on Barclay, looking at the front of the house.
Okay. And the next picture?
And then this is on Barclay as well.
So the house is oriented, it's got facing South Ithan and not really engaging with Barclay.
Correct.
And the next picture?
And this is heading down. This is the blue route there, the sound barrier.
So this is when you look out the front of the residence on at 471, you look at South Ithan and then a wall.
Yes.
Okay. And the next picture?
And this is the house across the street.
Right. And these next few pictures are intended to show the character of the neighborhood and how these are all newer, two-story, more modern dwellings, all facing and engaging with Barclay. And TJ, that picture is looking up Barclay?
Yes.
Okay. And the next one?
Mm-hmm. That's looking up. That's actually the neighbors to the left.
Right. So that correct. So those are the neighbors. There's the neighbors on the 471 Barclay side of the street. Again, noting the difference in the type of the house and their newer, more modern two-story structures. Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Are there any more photos? No. Okay. And then TJ and then Mr. Myers, if you could go to tab 6, if that's possible. TJ, can you describe the type of dwelling that you're looking to construct here?
Yeah, it would be 2-story, 4-bedroom. It did kind of fit, you know, what there was actually a couple newer houses that were constructed on the street, and I want to kind of do something very similar to what's there.
Mr. Meyer, do you have a copy of, Mr. Meyer, do you have a copy of the exhibit package that we submitted? Not the application, but the actual package that Mr. Kachansky and Mr. Economides received. If you do, if you could put up exhibit 6, which is the rendering of what TJ wants to construct. But TJ, in the meantime, could you talk to the board about what you did to engage with the neighbors, to talk to them about the application, how you explained it to them, and how they received it, and who you talked to?
Yes, I went door to door with actually the neighbors that were across the street. Actually, every house that was adjoining the property, and everyone seemed to like the idea of what we were going to do there. It would kind of fit in with what was, you know, already in the neighborhood.
And you spoke with them personally?
I did.
And so you spoke with the neighbor immediately abutting to the east, and the neighbor at the rear of the property on Rolling Road?
Correct. And
then the two, and you reached out to the neighbors directly across the street on Barclay as well?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you received a letter of support from the neighbor to the east adjoining?
Yes.
Okay. And they also were supportive?
Yes.
I don't know if Mr. Myers was able to find that, the rendering, but suffice it to say, it looks substantially similar to the other houses that are in the neighborhood. Again, it's just a rendering, and what we hope to build is something substantially similar to that. So that's all the questions I have for Mr. Davis. I don't know if the board has any for him, and we can certainly put up Mr. Hughes if the board has any questions for our engineer. But this is a request for a dimensional variance, again, to build a house that fits into the neighborhood, that engages with the street, that doesn't face the sound barrier, and we request a grant of dimensional variance.
Are there any questions from the board for this witness?
Well, could you build a house on this property once you take down the existing house? This is John Lord. Oh, you see me, okay. Once you take down the existing house, you're going to clear the existing house down to the completely. Is that correct, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Well, could you build a house on this property that meets the current zoning requirements?
No, the new building envelope would be too narrow, and it just wouldn't fit, you know, the character of the neighborhood.
Well, that's not my question. My question is, and I'm not sure what you mean by the character of the neighborhood, but could you build a house on this property and have it conform with the existing zoning code requirements?
Yes.
But if I, I'm sorry, Mr. Willard, didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, you did, but that's okay. That was my only question. Go ahead.
Yeah, we could put back up exhibit 4. And TJ, so you would, in order to orient the house to face Barclay, if you wanted to comply with the long, narrow building envelope, you'd have to build kind of a thin, very deep house that's not in keeping with the character of the existing neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
Otherwise, you would have a house that faces a sound barrier.
Yeah, because it would. Yeah, exactly. We would have to kind of keep it on an angle, and no one wants to look at that.
Right. And the proposed structure also removes an existing nonconformity by providing the proper side yard on the eastern side, correct?
It does.
So we're removing one nonconformity and asking essentially for an expansion of the other existing nonconformity.
Yes.
What other nonconformities? I see that there's.
I'm sorry, is that Mr. Lord? I can't
I'm
see.
sorry, it's John Lord, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
appears
so
that.
the existing house encroaches into the front yard setback. As you can see, the building envelope on the exhibit on the screen. The current house encroaches into the front yard setback where that dotted building envelope line is. So it encroaches into the front yard there. It also encroaches into the side yard to the top of the page.
Well, I see that one dimension is 18.4 inches, is 18 feet 4 inches. Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Fiscato?
No. There's a line. If you can blow it up big, I can't really tell.
Yeah, it's the Ithan Avenue side. It's the front
Right.
yard on Ithan Avenue.
Right. So there's a 60-foot setback off of South Ithan, and you see the dotted line around. It's sort of the I don't know what the geometric shape is, rhombus. But that's the building envelope where you can fit a house that complies. And as you can see, the current structure, which is that the gray outlined building, currently encroaches into the front yard setback. Right where it says front yard, there's that sort of V, and then it also encroaches into the side yard setback at the top of the page, near where the curve of the driveway is. So the existing house doesn't comply with the zoning code. The proposed house would comply with the zoning code setback at the top of the page, but we're just asking to increase the existing nonconformity on the South Ithan side. So it currently doesn't comply with the side yard or the front yard setbacks.
Okay, I have just one question, and it goes to the size of the proposed structure. Does it have to be that big? Can it be smaller than that? So that there's a less of a nonconformity? I'm just wondering whether there was some significance that resulted in a proposed structure of this size.
TJ, I'll have you answer that question. But before you do, if I could just also point out that the 35-foot front yard setback, that's really at the bottom left-hand corner of the proposed structure. You'll note as the property line falls away to the south, that setback would become deeper because of the irregular shape of the lot. So the 35 feet is just that setback is at the bottom left corner. But as you go towards the rear of the property, that setback would increase because the property line does move diagonally towards the bottom of the screen. But TJ, can you answer the chairman's question regarding why you designed a building envelope of these dimensions, and could it be?
We came up with the width of this house at the 72 feet because if this was the next lot over or any of the other lots, not a corner lot, the 72 feet would fit. We wouldn't be asking for this relief. So I that's where we came up with the width of the house.
And maybe Mr. Hughes knows, but
he hasn't been sworn yet, so. If he's going to testify, let's get him sworn.
Sure. Paul, could you be sworn?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name, please.
Paul Hughes.
Thank you.
Hey, and Paul, you're a civil engineer at Kimley Horn?
Yes.
And you
I'm sorry, you're going fast. At what company? Slow down a little bit for me. Yeah.
Always had that problem. I apologize.
Yeah, the name of the company, you said it too fast.
Kimley, Kimley -Horn, HORNE, or HORN. Paul, you're a civil engineer at Kimley Horn?
Yes.
And you prepared the zoning plan for this project?
Yes.
Do you know generally what the width of the houses are generally on Barclay, and whether the 72-foot width proposed here is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood?
Yeah, generally prior to putting the plan together with the applicant, we took some measurements. Now, grant you, these were Google Earth measurements of some of the houses in the neighborhood, and most of the houses we found were in the 70 to 80 or 85 feet wide. So we were looking to kind of get to that general ballpark to match the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions for either of the witnesses?
If I could also, I don't have any other questions. I would add, and we can have Mr. Hughes explain this, but we also did meet with the township arborist, Mr. Posback, because if this application is approved, we would have to go to the Shade Tree Commission. And we met with him on the property and developed an enhanced tree buffer along South Ithan to act as any sort of mitigation because of the fact that the house would be closer to South Ithan. So, and he approved the proposed landscaping plan, installing 6 trees of 2.5 caliper inches or greater along the South Ithan side to enhance that buffer.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for the witnesses, is there anything else, Mr. Fiscaldo, you'd like to enter into the record?
No, only to move my exhibits into the record.
Okay, without objection. Kevin, I don't see any public comment.
I do not either, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. With there being no public comment, I would ask someone to make a motion to get discussion started. Okay, I'll make the motion. I would move that the applicant be granted the relief requested in the application and in accordance with the plans and other materials ever entered into evidence. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Lord, are you in favor of granting the application?
Yes.
Mr. Weitzman?
Yes.
Mr. Delizia?
Yes.
And Mr. Nagel?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor, so that's 5-0. Good luck with the project. And thank you for your participation this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last item is appeal 3087. I'll be right with you. Sorry. Thank you. Appeal 3087, the applicant Tranche and Jeffrey Gagliardo, property located at 507 Shadeland Road and zoned R1 residential. The applicant is seeking a variance from section 280-17 and 280-101 to install a generator, a 10-foot by 18-foot shed, and an air conditioning unit, open paren, defined as accessory structures under section 280-4 and 280-17, close paren, on the south side of the lot, which is considered to be a front yard. Does this sound familiar? A front yard, due to the corner lot placement of the property as defined in section 280-4, quote, yard requirements for corner lots, close quote. All right. Are the applicants ready to proceed?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So Norma, if you would swear in the applicants, please.
Yes, if you will raise your right. Are you both testifying?
Yes.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
I do.
And state your names, please.
My name's Tran Che, T-R-A-N, last name's Che, C-H-E.
And my name is Jeffrey Goliardo, Jeffrey, last name Goliardo, Guagliardo.
Thank you. You will have to speak up, sir, if you talk. I can hardly hear you.
Okay, good evening, and tell us about the project and tell us why you're here.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman and members of the zoning hearing board, my husband and I are requesting a variance to have a generator, a shed, and approval for an installed air conditioning unit located on the south side of our property, which is considered a front yard under section 280-4, as our property is located on the corner of Knox Road and Shadeland Road. The accessory structures would be located on Knox Road, which is a dead-end road with one property, 697 Knox Road, on the opposite side where our neighbors, the Urquhart family, have provided a letter consenting to the placement of the accessory structures. As I mentioned, the AC unit has already been installed, where in April of 2020, at the peak of the COVID-19 crisis, our AC unit broke and we had a 2-month-old newborn at home. Due to the urgency, we requested Quality Degree to come and install the AC unit. When we asked about a permit, we were told that the township was closed and that nothing was needed at the time by Quality Degree. When we applied for our generator to be installed at the same location in November of 2020, we learned that a variance was required, and we decided to meet with the land survey engineers, compile the required materials, and request the variance and disclose the AC installation. For the generator, we're requesting the variance's placement at other locations would require a significant gas line running across our home, where the proposed location would have the shortest gas line as it's in closest proximity to our gas meter. We have GenPro Power Systems representative Jay Werkheimer with us to speak to the proposed location. For the shed, we're requesting the variance for the placement on the south side corner, meeting the setback requirements, as our property is on a hill and installation at other locations would be a hardship. We would have to have a significant retaining wall and risk potential erosion and runoff, according to our civil engineer and land surveyor, David Damon.
Okay, Ian, could you pull up the plan of the property so we can sort of get a visual orientation on where everything is, and then we can proceed? There we go. Okay, Ms. Che, if you could just, I think they're pretty well identified, but if you could just talk us through the 3 items of particular interest here tonight, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so if you see at the bottom right-hand corner, the dark shaded area, that's going to be the proposed shed. It's labeled, and it would be 180 square feet as marked, meeting the setback requirements. The second, right above that, a smaller box, is the proposed generator location. And then right next to it, there's a small little box indicating AC, and that's where the AC unit has already been installed.
Okay, and the neighbor from whom you received a letter of support, is that, I guess, at below the bottom of the screen on Knox Road? Is that where that person lives?
Yes, so it's right on Knox Road, and where you would see Legend at the bottom, that's where their house would be located.
Okay, and the testimony here is that the topography of the property makes placement of the shed difficult, if not impossible, anywhere else on the property in conformity with zoning. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the generator, again, it would simply require a long gas line.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there questions from members of the board on this?
Can we take the picture down, the exhibit?
Thanks, Ian.
This is John Lord. Yeah, when your original air conditioner went bad, where was it located?
So it was located, if you go back to the picture, or if you go to the application on page 17, it's where we're looking to put a proposed patio. So it was located right next to the patio on the south side.
Okay. So it was that patio, it's a proposed patio, is that right? Okay, I see.
Yeah, so there's an enclosed patio that's marked in a solid line white. And then the shaded areas where we're looking to ultimately in the future build a patio.
Do I understand that Mr. Kojanski, our zoning officer, issued a permit to you to put in your generator in the backyard?
Yes, so the other location was by the steps. So you can see right above the enclosed patio, there are steps there. And when we met with Jay Vorkheimer, who's on the line from GenPro Power Systems, when we measured it out, the generator would actually protrude into the walkway about a few inches. And so we thought it would be best to actually seek the variance and move it to the south side.
Is that individual you just mentioned, is he here to testify?
Yes, Jay, I believe you're on.
Okay, well, he would have to be sworn in first. Okay. But do I understand the generator could be installed at the location where Mr. Kojanski issued the permit for?
That's correct. However, it would protrude onto the back walkway.
And the back walkway appears in one of the photographs, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It is on page 67 of the application.
Okay, I'll find it. Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks. Oh, I do have another question. I'm sorry. There is a basement in your house, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
And okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I had a question. So Knox Road comes to a dead end there, right where the shed is?
That's correct.
And what's behind your property?
It is against, actually, let me double check. If you go to page 56 of the application, it'll show a Google map image. And I believe it'll show, I'm forgetting the street name, my apologies.
This is Jeff. They're actually where the street dead ends. I believe there's a small wooded fence there, and then some trees that separate where our street dead ends to a wooded area, and then the next street over the Van Leers.
So is there a property right behind your house then? Like
yes.
Okay, and have you talked to those neighbors?
We have not talked to those neighbors. We did send them a notification that we were planning to construct the shed there. And so we haven't heard anything from those neighbors.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
This is the, excuse me, this is John Lord again, number 67. That's the photograph showing the walkway you referred to, ma'am?
That's correct.
Yes.
I have no more questions for this witness. Where did our chairman go?
While we're waiting, sir, can I get your spelling, please? They brought your name up a couple of times.
Yeah, it's coming up as Tranchi. I'm not a second Tranchi, just so you know. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, and the last name is Vorkheimer. It's V as in Victor, ORCHHEIMER. You can just call me Jay.
Any of the other board members have a question of this witness while we're waiting?
I'm back on, sorry. I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, John. Mr. Lord just wrapped up his questionings. I don't know if anyone else has.
Oh, I'm so, yeah, I lost sound. I had to drop off and come back in. Sorry. Okay, no, if there are no other questions, this would be the point in time that we would typically have applicants move to have their exhibits admitted into the record. So if you'd like to do that, just make the request and I think it'll be granted
I would like to submit the exhibits into the record.
without objection. Kevin, I don't see any public comment. Did I miss anything?
You are correct, Mr. Chairman. I did not see anything in the in my email.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. That being the case and no public comment, would someone like to make a motion so we can deliberate on this application?
There's a Mr. Verkheimer who was identified when you were off, when you lost sound or lost the connection for a while. I thought, I don't know if they want him to testify or not.
Just before you got cut off, you were asking about being sworn in.
I accepted.
Yeah, yeah. Really, it's up to the applicant. You know, at this point, if they feel that there's something that he could add to the case, they're certainly you know, permitted to call him as a witness.
Yeah, so we would like to call Jay as a witness.
Okay, thanks. Norma, would you please, and what we're going to reopen the record at this point. Norma, if you would.
Yes, if you would raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Mr. Werkheimer?
You can't see my hand, but it's raised.
Okay, it's raised. All right. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And state your name, please.
Jonathan Vorkheimer.
Thank you.
Jay, can you talk about the alternative location that was proposed, that was approved by Kevin Kachansky for the permit, and that option that was proposed?
Yeah, so once we applied for the permit, it was evident that there was the two front yards. So the alternative was by the steps on the back of the house, the picture which you just observed. It's not an ideal location, however, it will work. It does require a much longer gas line and a much bigger gas line. The results that we receive from PICO, every time a generator is installed, a form needs to be turned into PICO to determine the quality of the gas service to the property. Their service is adequate to handle the addition of a generator. However, they were not able to give us a higher pressure. Normally, with a gas line of this length, we would install a higher pressure system so that the gas line winds up being much smaller through the house. That wasn't possible. In addition to that, the original picture that you saw of the steps, even though it will work, there's not a lot of space left over for us to install the generator between the actual walkway, which is also an elongated step, and the house, for us to meet code for the fire regulations for the installation of a generator. It will actually encroach on that walkway, make you have to walk around it as you're going up or down. The slope is not ideal either. So it would be better to install the generator as close to the gas meter as possible, so we can have what we would call a standard gas line, keep the length down because the pressure is lower.
Where does the gas line enter the property?
It's actually underground. In this particular house, due to the age, the gas meter is inside. I believe it's inside.
I asked the question the wrong way. I'm sorry. Where does it come in from the street?
It comes, let me just take a look. Off of Shadeland through the front lawn. I apologize. I don't remember if it's inside or outside, but that's where the gas line originates.
Okay. Near the manhole cover that appears on Shadeland?
I would not be able to say with certain accuracy exactly where it comes from. That's something that Pico would know. But generally speaking, in most residential settings, it's probably in about the middle of the house where the gas meter is mounted. They generally will go in a straight line from the street.
That's where the gas meter is, but you'd have to run a line to the generator, correct? It's a gas-fired generator, correct?
Oh, that's correct. It runs on natural gas. And I did just grab my other paperwork. I do apologize. The gas meter is on the outside of the house. It's on the actual opposite corner, farthest away from where the generator was originally approved by the steps, requiring a much, much longer gas line. To answer your question, the gas line probably originates close to the far right side of the house, looking at it from the view of Shadeland with your back to the road. The gas line, now the gas service itself is underground, so you can't see it. Probably originates on Shetland in that general area.
If the proposed patio wasn't constructed, you could put the generator in the back of the house, correct?
Other than the patio, I guess it could be put there. By code, we have to be 5 feet from any openings. I know there's windows in the back that would push it out, probably to the area of the edge of the existing the white part that's the existing, I guess. I'm sorry, it's so small I can't see it.
This patio.
The patio.
The existing patio.
Yeah, the existing patio. It'd probably push it out to the edge of that, which is not ideal as far as aesthetics. I guess it could work.
Thanks. Thank you. No other questions?
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board for this witness? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anything else the applicant would like to enter into the record at this point?
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to get deliberation started on this application?
Sure, it's Rich Weitzman. I'll make a motion to approve the application based on the plans submitted and the other materials.
Is there a second?
I'll second. George.
Okay, thanks, George. Any board discussion?
I just want to say that I'm a little bit troubled by it. I mean, I understand that I sympathize with their situation, but when you strip it down to the essentials, this is all being done so they can put in the patio where they want it. That's all. I mean, I don't know whether it's strictly adheres to the requirements of hardship. It looks like a self-created hardship to me. But I also understand that because they're on this dead-end street here, it's really not that, I don't really think it may not be, I think if there are houses further on this street, I think it would be a different story, but Knox Road doesn't go anywhere here. I mean, I'm familiar with the street. I mean, I know it just ends. It was never opened up, whether it's supposed to be opened up or not at some point, I have no idea, but it's not there. There's houses over here, so it's never going to be opened up. So I'm not going to oppose it. I just wanted to make that point on the record that I think that it's under other circumstances, I think this is a self-created hardship.
Okay, any other board comment? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. Mr. Lord?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Delizio?
Aye.
Mr. Weitzman?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. So that is 5-0. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long evening. Good luck with your project. And there being no other business before the board, I would note that we meet again on March 18th, 2021, and the February meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Be safe out there.